Wow, Neil Armstrong. Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on the moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay and with all solar winds.
Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
You don't see the curvature of the earth. That stuff is flat.
Piecing up the puzzle, need a buster bubble, evil gonna crumble, yeah? Sit down, be humble, got the ball, you about to fumble. You'll get mad, cause at this fight I'm about your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Pops at the president, Jeran got the evidence. Arrow slaying Jesuits and Zack is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant. Your resident is heavens and I hope to settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent. That's a guy, not an in court, but we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
Blowbusters taking over. Bye-bye, moon man and rover. That's just so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Blowbusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster. But the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is.
Inner World Productions.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, the mysteries of this realm. I'm your host, Bob Xanderdude60. We're back with another cool show for you today. And we're just gonna, really keep pushing the envelope because, we like to be out there on the cutting edge. And so today we're going to cover, quite a few things. We're going to, look at the debate that went on between Austin and Jeran and David and Sean Hibbler and talk about that a little bit, about the guy that they were debating, the physicist. And beyond that, I think, I wanted to kind of highlight a video that came out by one of my favorite content producers, Don't Spare the Truth, who came out with a video this week, and we're kind of watching in the background here. It's called The Aetheric Soul Unveiled. Well, that title alone ought to really make some people become unhinged. But, when we talk about the unseen world, I mean, people really seem to get unhinged about it, and they think that if you can't be encountered or anything like that, then it simply doesn't exist. And yet there are so many things that science has uncovered that, whether or not they fit the scientific method, there is something absolutely positively going on behind the scenes, in these effects. And I just thought that one of those things that fits into that category is going to be several of the things we're going to be talking about today, like the phantom limb effect, or Carillion photography, or very, very strange things like that, because the soul and the ether actually form when they hit a point of resonance. They form into our physical reality. And I think that there's a lot of this that is being very much proven. Of course, there's definitely skeptics, like from Harvard, and say, oh, this is all BS and stuff like that. But nevertheless, there is a ton of evidence coming forward showing that people are having these experiences, and it's absolutely mind-boggling the implications of them. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to have a little bit of a watch party. I'm going to watch some of this film with you, and we're going to cover some of the things that are in it. It's of course about a 2.5 hour long video, so we can't watch the whole thing. But I figured I would at least bring up some choice sections of it that we can talk about and see how that works out for everybody. But before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce the panel. And first up, we have, as always, Jeran from Jeranism. How you doing, Jeran?
Doing fantastic, Bob. Glad to be here. Excited.
Awesome sauce.
Oh, I thought for a second I was on mute still. I was like, what the hell's going on? No, everything's good.
Okay, cool. All right, and next up we have Austin from Wits It Gets It. And how you doing today, Austin?
Doing great. Looking forward to another good show. Decently productive week. So yeah, should be cool. Glad to be
Awesome. Very cool. And we also have Zachary Zabala, or the Good Times for All channel. And how are you doing today, Zach?
Hey everybody, yeah, doing really well. Sun came back around, so it's a good day. Yeah, really interesting week. I thought the chat that with Bryant was very telling. For someone who actually taught physics, it really goes to show that you don't have to comprehend the equations. You just have to memorize them and regurgitate them at the right part. You don't have to actually comprehend what's going on, because so much of what he said was so wrong about electrostatics. And it goes back to basic physics that is taught, like first year physics students in college are taught these things. And he had no clue what he was talking about. I thought that was so telling that even the people teaching physics don't really comprehend it all the time.
Yeah, that's absolutely sure. And you can't blame them. They don't think they're lying. They think they're teaching the truth because it's
That's
being
what he was
handed
taught.
down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can't
It's
blame them for
amazing.
that.
I'd like to see how different a course is from MIT to a course at a lesser accredited college. I would like to see the differences in what is actually taught and said between those two different teachers, because I bet it would be drastic and people would be very shocked to find out how different things are being taught at this college level education system.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But you also have to remember that Walter Lewin was, I think that he may have said a little bit too much sometimes. And he got in trouble a few times for some of the stuff that he said. So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why he's one of my go-tos. He was blackballed. His tenure was taken away from him. And I think it was because he was teaching a little bit too much and making statements that were a little too eye-opening to a lot of the students.
What he took his tenure taken away for what?
Inappropriate text with a student.
Yeah, right. Yeah, pretty crazy. So, there obviously was much more to that story, because that guy just doesn't exactly seem like, Hugh Hefner to me. But yeah, so they wanted to pressure him on something, and he was definitely saying things that were not filling out the mainstream narrative. And I wondered how he got away with that at MIT, but he did, or at least so we
It goes
thought.
to show when you tell students the truth, that's why there's so many, great accomplishments that came out of MIT in the 4 decades that he taught there. Why so many advancements in our technology came from that institution was because he was teaching the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, CHKDG8, for the super chat. He says, would love to get everyone's opinion on AOR's recent complete 180 on his work and entire philosophy. Everyone thinks he's compromised. Well,
I think he's just being honest, and he said some things. He comes from an honest place, saying that he tried to captivate some of his friends and families and wanted to make a documentary really captivating to try to wake them up. and he thinks he just kind of went too far in speculation, but stated it as if it was definitive fact. The more he looked into it, he doesn't necessarily agree with all of it, so he's just not staking it as fact anymore. I mean, he didn't flip on the earth. He seems like he's being honest to me. So anytime someone can walk back what they said because they now disagree with it, they actually get respect from me, because I think that's what like actual integrity is, instead of saying something and even if you're proven wrong later, just going down swinging. So that's kind of how I look at that. I don't have any problem with what he did.
Me too, Austin. 100%. I thought the same thing. I thought it was amazing that he walked it back. And not only did he walk it back, but he then proceeded to show why he was wrong on that, right? And really gave it some substance, and showed all that and demonstrated it very clearly. So yeah, I haven't seen anything that makes me think he's a shill or anything like that. In fact, I think he's just somebody who's looking for the truth, just like the rest of us.
A lot of people
So,
put that forward and really got caught up in the Tartaria thing, and like I think there's something to it, but it's way blown out of proportion with how people use the word, so overarching. And I think that they propped him up and showed his video as the main way to try to tell their people about it, so they feel like personally betrayed in a way, right? Where it's like, yeah, I think it's because of how much they're invested into some of the theories. And anyway, yeah, that's my take. I think that we should encourage people to be like that. That's what we need if we're actually trying to find truth. We don't need someone saying the same thing for 8 years, and even when they're proven wrong, like doubling down. That's the worst thing ever for the truth community.
I just think about Decimal Z here, and how Decimal Z is someone who's not afraid to say, hey, I'm struggling to understand this. And we don't hate him for that. We're not, oh, he's a shill. We're not like that at all. We're saying, hey, wow, I respect you for coming forth saying that this is difficult for me to understand. If anyone would like to help me, please help me. That's totally cool.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he's kind of doing a very similar thing, which is very respectable. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And speak of devil, it's the devil. Sorry about that. we have Kyle with us. And how you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing really well. Things have been very busy for me over here, just kind of doing all these little videos with my kids here, doing flat earth biology. That's been a lot of fun. I'm thinking like this whole thing, the series I'm going with that, it inspires me to want to do more of a Flat Earth Kids. We got to do a whole series on Flat Earth Kids. And I know that's going to upset a lot of trolls, and they're going to say, how dare you do such a thing? But I'm just thinking here, what, are you kidding me? How dare you do such a thing? How many kids in the world right now in preschool are being taught about the globe and just being indoctrinated on this? And you dare criticize me about, teaching kids about the flat earth? I don't think so. Okay. Fair play, guys, right?
Yeah, exactly. Of course, the problem with that is, they'll sit there and try and get people like Children and Family Services, involved. And, oh, he's teaching his kids, stuff that's going to make them crippled for the rest of their life, and everybody, make their life awesome or make their life horrible. And I don't know. I mean,
that'd be interesting. That's for sure. If things go that direction, oh man, I'm ready to fight.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that wind up in court. Of course, every time we have wound up in court thus far, we've won. So
yeah. So that'd be a really interesting battle to have. But man, you get between me and my kids, man, you can be prepared for something there. You think I'm kind of going crazy now, but just trying to get all this content out there and smacking NASA around and all that. So it's you haven't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay. All right. So that pretty much covers the panel. And so one of the things I want to start out with is before I became a flat earther, I studied conspiracy theories, every kind, everything for 20, 30 years. And one of the most amazing books that I ever read was a Fritz Springmeier book called Deeper Insights into the Illuminati Formula. And that had just some amazing tidbits in it. A lot of the times you just couldn't even believe that it was even real, right? And one of the things that they talked about in there was the fact that they had this technology that would be able to that they would be able to determine what had gone on inside of a room for something like up to 7 days after it had happened, right? And this is all, supposedly done through ether imprinting, that they talked about. And it's like, wow, that's really bizarre, right? So, here we are fast forwarding to today, and I get this video from Don't Sphere the Truth, and this kind of goes into something that's very much like that, that has the ether totally, tied to the spirit, right? And the ether and the spirit, when they come together and they're focused on, they form a resonance. And when there's a resonance, there's a power transfer and things manifest into reality. Now, some of the things that they have come up with is, what we're watching right now is we're watching something that's called the phantom limb effect. And this is a trip, guys, because people that have actually lost limbs, um, can be made to think that they still have that limb and they still have feeling in it, and they often feel it, and sometimes there's a lot of pain associated with it, and it's like, well, how can doctors treat something that doesn't even exist, right? And so it's kind of a trippy subject, but I want to kind of go and show you some of this. Let's go ahead and play a little bit of this from this movie. And let me see, where's a good part to start right here? Yeah, about actually right towards the beginning, actually. So let's go ahead and play this a little bit. And now the volume is down kind of low on this for some reason. So you guys may want to turn up your volume. But I'm going to play a few minutes of this and we're going to talk about it and see what everybody thinks. So here we go.
You have a spirit. You have a soul. You're not just a body full of water and tissue walking around. You are a soul with a body. That is 100% true. And this video will prove it to you.
Once upon a time, it was common for people to speak of their own souls, and talk of their own souls went together with a sense that our souls were of great value, even immortal. But it seems we've lost touch with soul. So let's retrieve the ancient understanding. In the ancient world, the term soul was commonly used to signify the principle or source of life in a living thing. Soul was associated with the life breath, and the human soul, or rational soul, the human spirit, is different from the pure spirits precisely because our soul is the form of a human body. What does that mean? The soul is the form of the body. In the wisdom of Aristotle and Aquinas, the form of a thing accounts for several features of it. Form makes a thing to be what it is. So, the soul makes us to be a living human being. But a living human being is not just a soul. We're also bodies. We're made of matter. The soul forms or informs the matter to make it a human body.
The vast majority of people who've lost a limb can still feel it.
Okay, so basically what he's saying is, again, what I just said earlier, is that, there is this soul and then there is this resonance that then becomes form, okay? And it starts out in the etheric realm. And, like I said, for, those can deny this all day long. And just because you don't want to accept it in a piece of equipment that we can actually measure it on, there are other ways that this phenomenon is kind of manifesting itself, and they are absolutely positively intrinsically tied together. Okay, so you have the form of the soul, and you have the body, and then people will lose a limb, and they will think that they still have that limb, and they'll still have sensation from it and everything, and it is absolutely amazing what the mind does to keep that kind of vision alive. There's also another thing that has been able to photograph this type of phenomenon is there was a guy named Cleve Baxter that did a lot of polygraph work with plants. And one of the things that he found was really interesting is that they could take a plant leaf and they could cut it in half and they could put it through a process called Carillion photography, which is basically a plasma type uh, of photography where it's actually taking a picture of the high voltage or the voltage or the life force coming off the leaf itself. And many times, more often than not, the entire leaf would still be there, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And like I said, this is not something that is just a fluke. I don't believe for 1 second that it is any type of hoax or trick, anything like that, because so many schools have dedicated a lot of medical study to this, and it is really trippy what they have come up with. So let's continue on, unless anybody has any comments.
I was just going to say, I've heard the term ethereal plane, and doesn't that refer to the spirit realm itself, like very frequently?
It does, and we are absolutely linked to that ethereal plane, and some of those energies that do spill over into our realm, which it happens everywhere. We can measurably detect them in the form of magnetism and electricity. And isn't it interesting that electricity is always associated with life force and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'm just thinking here about, because this is one of the questions I had, like from residual from last time is, okay, so we hear a lot about the ether, and we think about a lot of these modern day experiments like the Michelson-Morley experiment, but the ether dates all the way back to Aristotle, as this video was kind of alluding to in the very beginning. And so the question was, how did they know about the ether way back then, way back before Michelson-Morley, way back before a lot of these modern day experiments and talk about it? How did they know about it back then? And
The basic logic, it's a logical axiom that something
Yeah.
exists outside the physical material world and that things interact with it within some type of metaphysical connection. So it has to exist just on a fundamentally logical axiom.
Yeah, they've all had experiences with the spirit realm around them, and a lot of them, the ancients there, were a lot more in tune with it than we are today. A lot of us just kind of utterly ignore it, but it's there. I've had countless experiences just with the spirit realm itself, just always around us. We're spiritual creatures, and when you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you're aware of it. So yeah, these ancients, when they have an experience with this spiritual realm, those entities are made of something, right? They're made of something. And as they're talking here, these ghost limbs, your spirit is made of something. And what is that made of? And here, from what I can gather, they're saying it's the ether.
yeah, absolutely. And like it or not, we're not going to be able to identify every single thing that makes our reality, right? I mean, anybody that thinks that we're going to be able to is delusional, and they're kidding themselves, because I personally believe that there are a lot of things that maybe, just maybe, we weren't meant to know it. Okay. Sure, we can spitball and we can hypothesize and we can talk about it. And it's very informative to be able to do this, because the best way to get ourselves informed about these phenomenon is to talk about it, if we, best case scenario, with people that are actually experiencing it or working with it or something like that. But and then of course you build kind of a preponderance of evidence as to a larger picture as to what is actually going on in this realm. Now, does it make any difference to whether or not the earth is flat? No, it doesn't. But you can only talk about the earth being flat, in so many ways, without going into it a little bit deeper, at least in my opinion. And there's much more to life than flat earth. Even though we all are in total agreement that, what we know about flat earth, um, is kind of the linchpin that I think will bring down the entire scientism, machine that's out there working against the public. So anyway, so let's go ahead and continue watching and see what else they have to say here.
Not as a memory or vague shape, but in complete lifelike detail. They can flex their phantom fingers and sometimes even feel the chafe of a watch band or the throb of an ingrown toenail. And astonishingly enough, occasionally, even people born without a limb can feel a phantom.
Soul is the inner organizational plan of the whole body. Soul organizes, literally makes into organs, the matter that makes us up.
I love that. The soul organizer makes into organs the matter that makes us up. Um, you know, that to me just rings so true. It makes so much sense because there has to be something behind the scenes that is orchestrating the magic, literally the magic that creates life, right? You know, if you listen to most mainstream science today, they would like you to believe that we are machines, right? Some form of electrochemical machine and computer, and that we are limited to that, and that's it. But more and more and more evidence comes every day that proves that to be absolutely wrong. There's so much more to it. There's so much more telling us that our consciousness is not a local phenomenon. It is somewhere else. It's somewhere out there, and we are simply accessing it. And many other things are going on that we're trying to figure out about life. So that's why I think this is kind of an interesting subject. So let's continue
This one's a
on.
good one for flat Earth biology. Yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I hope this may not be everybody's cup of tea, and if not, that's fine. But it's kind of one thing that I think is just another factor of the ether, because if you've been following the battles, the flat Earth wars lately, there are people that are saying the ether doesn't exist, and then there are some of us that say it absolutely does, and the ones of us that say it absolutely does are content to say, fine, you can have your opinion, no problem with that. But unfortunately, the opposite is not true. And, that really sucks because, everybody wants to, take over your opinion and run your mind and tell you what to think. And that's just not right. So,
I'm
anyway,
just thinking of the crab on Mars, and it's like this is a very clear pincher on this what you call a rock. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, they see what they want to see. They're just trying to walk around it.
yeah, they do. And for them, it's mostly about being right and not having anything informative or anything productive, to say about it, or even thought provoking. It's just about, oh, on the technical level, I'm going to be right, and that's it. And we don't need that kind of garbage here. Yeah, science has its place. It has a scientific method. It's a lot of its techniques will bring us closer to the truth. But I have to agree with Jeran when he says it doesn't necessarily prove anything because there's way too many variables. And not only that, it goes into a realm where, how many times has science been wrong before? I always loved that one show, the show where the guy's making a case about, religion versus science, and how many times science has been wrong, and all these smartest people in science were just, bitched out by somebody else because they were completely wrong. And that's something that's the reality of science. And if you can't accept that, and you still want to think that it is infallible, well, I don't know what to tell you. But
Well, yeah,
that's to
wasn't
me.
that their whole premise with that paper they were writing with Dr. John Dee about you can't prove a force of any kind? And I mean, they were pretty much saying that, yeah, you can't prove anything.
Yeah, well, yeah, and of course, then you can get into philosophical areas too, about what the natural world is. Well, and I've said many times, well, what is the natural world? Do we even know what that is? If we are living in a construct, if we're in a constructed realm, right, then what we are living in is a piece of technology, and everything inside this piece of technology that we are identifying as Mother Nature is technology. So where do you draw the line, right?
I would say with the whole, whenever people say like that science can definitively prove and stuff like that, it's always something like vague thing that they say. So I don't see how someone, like, if you say heat causes water to boil, it's like, well, what is heat, and does it, and is that the only thing? Because it's insinuated that you've proved like it's the only cause. Oh, it's not the only cause, so it's just a cause when we control all these other variables and based on our current understanding of what things are. I don't see how someone could ever get mad at Jeran for saying that. It seems wild because it's like everything's always relative to our current understanding. Like, in fact, water boiling, it's like, well, heat is actually an effect itself. So what actually causes that? And it's like pressure mediation, heat's a byproduct, and you can have water boil many different ways. So I don't know. That's how I look at that whole thing. Is it seems a little nuanced, you know? It's like you really can't say the cause. I proved the cause. You proved a cause in the scenario where you may not be accounting for all variables because you don't know them.
All right, at least if you throw that on the end. But let me just say that because I have to explain one thing, because everybody in my comments I'm reading right now are just, they're all from the FED crowd, and they can't grasp the fact they keep saying you better call out Bob and Witsit for saying that they can prove things. So again, they just told you right now that when we're talking about this is proven or we prove this, it's a very vague term in the way that we're not saying finalized forever, the science is over, there's nothing else, there can be nothing else. That's nobody's saying that. So, and then they're saying that's why I called Nathan a scammer. That's not why I called him a scammer. That's an element of it. And what I realized was, because people don't realize, I talked to Nathan about my opinion months ago, it may have been a year ago, where I told him when he came at me and said, hey, science does prove things. I said, no, this is what I'm saying. We don't know all things. We don't know that the scientists are unbiased. We know they're not unbiased. And I said, so I would just never say that they've definitively proved anything. And then I asked him for some examples, and he gave me the water boiling, which I was able to look up and see, well, no, it's anywhere. It can be 98, 99, So, if you want to be generic and say water boils around 100 degrees Celsius, okay, I'll agree with that. So the reason that I said scammers, because I've watched what Nathan has done to Bob and then to Witsit and then to me. So it's like he knew my opinion, waited in the wings. Once he went through Bob, once he went through Witsit, then it just came to me again. So they brought me up, and it's like he was holding on to that bit of information to then bring it up and laugh about it just when they needed more views. So if you're going to call somebody a liar, that's one thing. If you're going to call somebody deceptive, that's another thing. When I think of the word scam, I think of a scammer as somebody who's lying for money.
Exactly.
That's a scammer to me. Is somebody who has to tell lies because their money depends on it. And if you look at the email or the Skype that Nathan sent me, he was most concerned about the fact of, Jared, don't call me a scammer. You're going to take food off my plate. You're going to cause me to make less money. So,
well, yeah, the definition of scam, right? Like lying to get money. That would be like what a scam is.
That's why scamming is so bad. Is it's stealing money from other people. Like when they do that on the phone, that's what they're trying to do, is get information.
Yeah, they're trying to lie to you.
Exactly.
Exactly. And like it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. This is the problem with if you put yourself in such a definitive position, certainly when like money's involved, that you can never say you're wrong or update your position. That's a tough spot to be in, right? Because you're gonna, for one, trap yourself, and then it's gonna eventually cause you to be dishonest. Like with the conversation specifically, people have been saying for a long time in the flat earth, it's like a script, because Globers say science can't prove things, nothing can be proven, and they actually go as far as to say philosophically nothing can be proven. With I vehemently disagree with that. You can logically prove things, but anyway, so they want to say that because then they can just act like, well, everything's on equal footing, and so every story we make up is just as valid as anything else, even if you do a real physical experiment with it, because nothing can be proven. And that's ridiculous, and that's why the flat earthers have created this kickback against it. And I understand, but also you gotta be careful when you're saying you can definitively prove things. You have to be hyper specific about every possible variable, and like you have to say heat is a cause of boiling water after a certain duration with the known control variables of, and people were saying water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at 14.7 psi, and that's just not true. It's objectively not true. And water doesn't boil at 100 degrees Celsius in a microwave. And you can boil, there's all kinds of different scenarios, like what type of water, we covered it all. So the point is, it seems like we're just trying to find truth and to adopt that worldview where it's like, you can scientifically prove things. You can't talk about anything in the natural world unless you can do it this way. you're very confined. You really can't talk about anything. That's why there's only like 3 or 4 examples anyone can think of, and it's just a stupid, non-productive way to go about life when, you know,
It's just a
we
way to
never
get
know
more
everything.
views. And that's why I say it's a scam, is because Nathan knows my opinion. So when somebody brings it up, does Nathan interject and say, no, what Jeran is saying is that you can't prove anything definitively? Because no, it uses it as a talking point to make fun of us and to try and get views. So that's why I'm like, if somebody asks me something about Nathan or something, I'm going to represent their views for real. I don't need to I'm certainly not going to straw man people on our own side, but I've watched these guys straw man Bob. I've watched them straw man Austin for, hours and hours, and I've watched them mute him. And so that is a deceptive practice. And this is why I said, when I said, I don't know if it's for money, I don't know what it's for. I don't know what the real reason is there to have to propel yourself up, to puff yourself up as somebody who can never be wrong, because that's just impossible. There is nobody like that. So if I'm supposed to believe that the flat earth debate over there, those 5 guys sit around and they come up with things that can never be proven wrong, you got another thing coming.
Yeah, like it's nuanced.
To prove itself just means to test something. That's it. Prove me now herewith, and see if I will not pour out the
right
Malachi.
And there's different levels of evidence, right? This is what I look at, is simply where does the evidence lead me? I don't need to say anything. Once you've said something proves it to me, I'm like, oh, well, then I don't even need to research it anymore because it's been proven. And I just don't think that that's possible on any front. I mean, could somebody say, Jeran, can you prove that you were born to your mother? No, not really. I mean, yeah, I grew up in that house. There's pictures of her holding me in a hospital bed, but I can't prove how would you prove that? So everything is like that. You just can't definitively say, unless you're God. If you're God and you know all possible forces, all possible parameters, all possible contingencies, then I think you can start to say that. But if you're just talking about proof, and you say that in a way that means, like, right now, to our current understanding, it is as factual can be, then yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I can see saying that.
Like, yeah, you can't prove that this causes this effect with these variables controlled as far as we currently understand it.
You can say that.
And, yeah, I mean, come on, it should have been like okay, I get it. It's like where one person is saying that one person's got tails, one person's got heads, and people are arguing about whether or not the coin is heads or tails. When it's both, it seems like they're talking past each other in a way, and that would just require good faith to understand the validity in Jeran's point. So yeah, it just whatever. I think it's pretty obvious. And like, so what exactly is heat? Can I do it with electricity? What if I actually was able to maintain or somehow introduce tons of heat to water, but in such a way that what's generating the heat prevents the water from boiling no matter how hot we get it? Then that would debunk it. I mean, that's a hypothetical, but at
150 Celsius, water does not boil because it will hover above the plate and not boil. It just stays in water form. So I mean, again, there's so many little things, and if somebody just says that, and look it up online, look up, does water boil at 100 degrees Celsius? Everything will say approximately, and they'll say it's a very generalized term. And a lot of people in science think it's not necessary, and it gives the false impression that science has been completed. Yes, that's a great, useful term, but don't tell people, oh, it just boils at 100 degrees Celsius all the time, because it's not true. What bowl is it in? If it's in a glass bowl, it's 101. If it's in a ceramic bowl, it's 99. If it's in a tin bowl. So again, those things aren't covered in water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Well, you didn't tell me what vessel it was in. You didn't tell me what kind of water. Has it been shook up? Just by shaking water, there's a researcher who shook water for like a week, except for when he was sleeping. Shook water, and then that water boils at 108. So,
yeah, we actually have evidence heat isn't the actual primary cause. I mean, we can do it in a vacuum. It's the pressure mediation itself. It's actually the pressure relationship that's doing it, and heat's just a byproduct of most of the energy we introduce to try to get boiling water. So, yeah, like, I don't know. I just think it's stupid because the overarching thing is, dude, I use the word prove, and I'm not going to stop using it, right? Because I'm like, first one, I think you can logically prove things, and I'm like, what Mickelson morally showed was the earth is not moving. So once it was proved that the earth can't be moving if there's an ether, then I'm never going to stop saying it. And it's almost to chop me up and be like, oh, look, Jeran and Austin disagree. It's like, bro, Jeran and Austin are sitting here talking to each other. My guy, you sound ridiculous.
Yeah. And I say proof a lot too. So I'm not saying it when they bring it up in a way that they're saying like it's definitive, then I always step in and say, okay, but if we're talking about proof, like we don't need to do any more science on it, then I disagree. And Nathan knows that. Nathan knows my opinion. So
it's testable. It's testable.
That's what science is always learning more, right?
One thing about the Globusters panel, and guys, I've been running this show for 7 years now. We've been on almost 8 years. I have never made it a secret that I like to dabble in to the things that are a little bit on the other side, right? Because people are interested in stuff like that. We've covered things like pyramid phenomenon. What's going on? People could say, "Oh, there's no proof of that, this, that, or the other thing." It's like, really? Then what is all this phenomenon that's going around? And I honestly believe that, well, that's really up for the people to decide. I find it interesting. I know a lot of other people find it interesting, and it's my show. And if you don't like what I'm putting out on my show, then you can go screw yourself. And I say that directly to you, Nathan Oakley. You can go screw yourself because you don't tell me what I can talk about on my show. Because what I talk about, people find interesting. That's why we are so much bigger than you are. And you just beat the hell out of a subject and you never talk about anything else. And you're sick and frankly evil attitude, the way you scream at others and yell at other people. When you don't have anybody there, you guys yell at yourselves, your own panel members. It's like a shark feed. It's unbelievable. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to hear it. I don't want to talk about it, and I'm sick of you and your crap. So just take a hike, Nathan.
I'd say you just kind of ignore like the we'll just keep elevating, right? Like they're gonna make 400 videos about Jeran. No one cares. No one cares. You got 10 minutes of Glowbusters, dude. Congratulations. Go get excited about it.
And really, if he wants me to apologize for and say, maybe he's not running a scam, then that would take him saying apologize to Austin for bringing him on the show, calling him all these names, and not letting him talk, muting him. Why would you do that? That is a form of straw man. And then also, I talked about it on my show last night. He was going on and on about me doing what I did, calling him a scam so that I could put fake experiments in front of people about Æther or something. I mean, he think he's getting me confused with YouTube.
Yeah, it's blatant and intentional lying when you don't even like really talk about the Æther. You've never claimed it. Æther can be proven with experiment, nothing like that.
I don't think it's even on my channel. I don't think I've ever mentioned it.
And that's one of the big differences.
He gets his power because everyone keeps talking about him still.
As I say, that's one of the big differences between Glowbusters and FED is if you're on FED, then everybody has to agree with Nathan and QE, period. If you don't, they'll scream at you. They'll holler at you. They'll tell you you're embarrassed. You're an embarrassment, stuff like that. I love the diversity of the opinions we have here, and I purposely look for that. I don't want Austin to think like I do. I don't want Jeran to think like I do, or Kyle, or Zack, or anybody. I like what everybody brings to the table, and we can talk about it like adults, right? But that's not the way that it is there. And then when they can't, find any ballers to disagree with, well, then they start attacking other flat earthers. We won't be the first. We won't be the last. These guys are just losers, period.
Yeah, we'll move on. We're going to create electrostatic theory. How dare you? Oh, is it a scientific theory? Like, I just say we just elevate. You know what I'm saying? I think, yeah, like it speaks for itself. And everything requires good faith, and we'll just associate with people with good faith. And I understand what Jeran's saying. I went around the whole United States defining science, telling people that this is pseudoscience, this is science, you have to do this. You know what I'm saying? I believe there is validity in bringing it up. We've been lied to and tricked with this idea that they call everything science and say you don't have a right to disagree with the science. And it's not science. It's theoretical nonsense that they run through the weeds with. And then they use this talking point in the trenches, which is where this script came from. The Globbers say, well, you can't prove anything. So they kind of use that to say, well, now we can make up whatever we want to. Everything's on the same level playing field. And that's not true, right? There are levels to validity scientifically. And so, yeah, it's nuanced, but it's like, whatever. I think it's just ridiculous to ever say, if you can only come up with like 2 or 3 things you claim you can prove scientifically, and then you say we're not allowed to talk about anything unless we can do that, then you're effectively saying by deduction, we can only talk about like 3 things. So
water boiling. And I don't even know. I want to look it up and find there's got to be something said that science is supposed to uncover the hidden things, not heat boils water. Like, I don't even think of that as science. Like, that's not, nobody, they did this whole straw man where they're like, oh, soil content boils water. Nobody's ever thought that. Nobody. So I don't
supposedly the mysteries behind nature,
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. So But that's not a mystery of why water boiled. I'm sure the first person who saw water boiling at a spring knew why the water was boiling. They didn't think it was the soil. They would have known that it was hot. So heat is what's causing the water to boil. That's not a scientific fact. The way I look at it. And again, I'm not saying that I don't even consider myself scientific. I'm just saying when I think of science and I think of that knowledge growth, I think of things that you're uncovering that we wouldn't have otherwise known, like UV light, right? Again, there's no way 200 years ago that people would have known that there was different wavelengths of light and that they did different things. And so if they were back then, somebody had to uncover that. That to me is great science, not I think that maybe this water's boiling because there's ice under it or something. I mean, that's just not, nobody's ever thought of that.
Well, they're talking about so we can cover the whole thing fairly, right? They're just talking about the method is what their argument would be, like the other side of flat earth. Not even just them. It's like the value in the method that you independently, like the specific in natural science, scientific experimentation, 3 constituent parts: dependent variable, independent variable, control variables. You manipulate the independent variable to prove that it's the cause of the effect. That way you can establish it with some actual validity in the real world instead of running around saying, look at that light in the sky. Okay, this is the density and it has super rotation and blah, 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 right? And so that's valuable in that sense, and that's cool. And,
so if they did that, though, I'll see if I'm wrong on this. So if they did that in 1800 and they did the scientific method all out, trying to figure out why people were getting sunburned, and they determined that it was the sunlight, because when they could very manipulate that. Does it count that if you were to kind of put somebody in shade or something like that? Is that varying and manipulating this sunlight?
Well, yeah. So yeah, I guess you could remove it. But what they would say is, even once you found out about UV rays, you didn't debunk the claim that it was the sun.
What if somebody went inside?
You see what I'm saying?
What if somebody went inside and started to get burned? Oh,
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So they would then say, because it's just sophistry. So then they're going to say, oh, well, we didn't say it was the only cause. It just is a cause. So what you should be saying is water is a cause of boiling water after a certain duration with certain variables. It's never the cause. You can never claim to know the sole independent cause of anything. And that's what it's sophistry. So they're not going to address that nuance there. Because they want to just be right. And so like, that's why I think it's better just to leave them over there, because like with the whole density thing, right? They showed the little egg in the water. They're like, oh, density disequilibrium. The globe Earth doesn't deny density, right? So it doesn't do anything unless your claim is that's the only cause of things going up and down. And that is what their claim is. Just like when I asked Brian point blank, he said, yes, that is the only cause. Well, when you're claiming that you prove something scientifically 100%, it's definitive that the only cause of the effect is this, then you're never going to be right. We don't know all the variables. We're constantly in the pursuit of understanding things. And all you can say is stupid, like 5-year-old statements like water boil with heat. It's like, okay, caveman, saying like, just get more specific. Actually, heat's just a byproduct of basically an electric nature with pressure mediation and that's what science is, actually figuring out the real stuff. And so there's just a nuance here. There's value in the method. I don't think anyone on Globebusters is going to say that scientific experiments aren't valid.
I think we all say that's the greatest thing that humans have ever come up with.
Yeah,
it is the best method to get as close as we can to the truth. I've said that from day one.
And the irony behind this is, like, I realize it does not take anybody to be able to carry out a scientific experiment. They don't necessarily need an education in science, but it does help. And what I will say is this, is nobody on that panel over there has ever done a single experiment, save Tony Riley, who put an egg in salt water, which we all did, I think, in first or second grade. And they come off like they are the absolute godsend, like know all be all to know everything about there is to know about science, and they have no clue. And that's the biggest part of the problem. They have no training. They've never done a single experiment, and they sit there and tell everybody else what it'd be like. It's just absurd.
I found out like we have to just like let it go, right? Because they've proven in spades that they will intentionally misrepresent, intentionally straw man, leave out the context, blatantly lie, play the victim after they do something as the aggressor, et cetera, et cetera. When you're dealing with someone like that, when you're dealing with someone that's proven that they will intentionally spin your words just enough to try to make a point you weren't actually making, and they'll clip you out of context, like that. Like, there's no winning. It could go on forever. It could go on till we die. They'll do it tomorrow. They'll do it next week. They're going to always do it. They're going to take something out of this conversation out of context and then say, look, they're contradicting. And if people just want to stay in that echo chamber and just believe that and believe the lies, there's nothing you can do. It's effectively a cult, right? So it's like, whatever. That's how I look at it. There is no winning this. I say that we just continue to have good faith, honest exchanges. We give our takes on things, and then continue to elevate and promote the truth and try to learn more and figure out more about where we live. That's really the only valuable avenue here forth. I would say that's what I was shown, that there isn't about intellectual honesty or anything. One side can never update their point. They have to always be completely right from what they said 7 years ago, and it can't change. And then we're constantly trying to change and learn and figure out what we're wrong about. So we're on two totally different ends of the spectrum. You know,
I saw people getting mad at me because they're like, and you changed your opinion from relative density to this whole electrostatic thing. I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? That's why I stay in the middle. That's why I don't take sides and start calling people stupid idiots and that they're embarrassments and that they're, how do my balls taste? Because when you do that, you've cemented yourself in whatever the position you're in at that time, and that's dangerous. Then you're a liability. Then
we all.
Good.
I was just going to say we all had to change our opinion to be where we are at one time.
And
so
I'm still
I mean,
open to it being changed
it's
again.
going to happen again too. Yeah,
exactly.
Mine will too. All of ours will.
You see the
That's
difference
called learning.
Jeran was able to say, "Oh wow," he kicked back. It didn't resonate with him. Once he did resonate with it, and he realized what was being said, and he shot, "Oh well, we can actually prove that this happens. We can demonstrate that this happens." So now we're like supposed to be scared of using the word "prove." Never,
Use it as
never.
always.
I know exactly.
Exactly.
Like I'm never
when he
going to
says
ever
prove. He means that we could still prove something else after that. So it's not proof like end of story. It is the end of all things.
Proof for now relative to what we currently understand.
Correct.
And
Based
so
on
it's
the
like Jeran was able to update his opinion. And that's why when I was talking to the dude and I'm like, so wait, just to clarify, because I don't want to straw man you. Are you claiming that that's the only cause? And he said, yeah, it is the only cause. Okay, now you're making an incredible claim that the only cause of things going up and down is density. We know that's not true. Provably there's another variable that does that same thing, blah, blah, blah. Right. So it's like, yeah, I think honest people can see what's going on, and intellectuals will just migrate to the side of the conversation, not picking sides, just the side of the conversation or the approach that's going to continue to propel us to learn more and more. And they can't. That's why he had to say, oh, well, you used Van de Graaff generator. That's not found in nature, because he has to stick with its only density. And when you put yourself in a little box, you can't grow. And we broke out of the box. You know, that's
what about
did.
any piece of test equipment, Austin? You know, a voltmeter to test voltage, an ammeter to test amperage, an ohm meter
thermometers
to test
are in nature,
resistant, a thermometer to test. Oh my God, Nathan, you use a thermometer? That's not found in nature. Where's that found in nature?
Well,
Nathan?
this is what's
You're
so
an
funny,
idiot.
Bob. But they say, okay, so they say that of course you can't do scientific experimentation without man-made devices. Almost all of them requires a man-made device to manipulate the independent variable. It's just the dependent variable that needs the observable phenomena. But then you get over here to, well, this is debunking what we said. So now we're going to just kind of not hold our script the same, and we're going to say, oh, Van de Graaff generator is not in nature. It's like, it's so stupid.
Which one of us said, hey, a cup isn't part of nature? Riley's experiment is invalid. Nobody.
Nobody. They don't even care about that. And it's like, the thing is, you can tell when they do things like say water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Then I go back and say, no, it doesn't. Then what did they changed their position to heat causes water to boil.
Admit you were wrong. Admit, okay, Jeran, good
wrong.
critique. I have to change my position to change it, not talk down to Jeran like he's slow and say independent variable, because no, you actually mentioned the control variable with the pressure itself by saying 14.7 psi. So you were acknowledging control variables. You just didn't account for all of them. Jeran called you out and showed you can't make the quantitative claim of 100 degrees Celsius at 14.7 psi because there's many more control variables, and that's wrong. And so instead of being like, you know what, fair enough, Jeran, you're right, we should stop saying that we know for a fact that scientifically it's been proven water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at 14.7 psi, because that was not correct. We shouldn't say it that way. They walk it back as if they weren't saying that really, and they were just saying the other thing, that heat boils water, and then Jeran stupid doesn't get it. So it's like you can't win with someone like that.
And there's
It's
people
like
who've actually said, I've seen them in like Facebook comments saying like, Jeran's so dumb that he's arguing against heat causing water to boil. It's like, all right, I mean, this is just where you have to bow out. You're like, whatever.
Yeah.
So the scary thing for me is the amount of people that continue to watch that just because of the drama. I get it. I get that drama is interesting for people, but just remember that when you do that to these type of people, you're inviting them to continue doing it. So if Nathan dips below to 700, 800 views per show, you'll notice that he has to go attack somebody so that the numbers get back up to 2,000, and then it'll kind of tail off again, and then he'll attack somebody else. So just remember that the more you go and watch those shows, the more he will continue to do that.
And yeah, we shouldn't even like breathe life into it anymore. That's
No,
my
I'm
thing.
done. Yeah, I'm done
We've
completely.
all addressed it because it's in the community. And we were personally, had accusations thrown at us. And then it's like, okay, move on. Fight the Flat Earth makes accusations that I'm scared to debate him. I'm not going to go talk about him and go on the show, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I put them in the same group, right? You're going to have McToon make lies up too. It's a little different. It stings a little bit when someone's on your side of this argument. We're trying to like fight
Well, it
against the
stings
world.
when you supported somebody for 2 years by being a patron. And I mean, that's what sucks is that you're like, man, I promoted this guy, had him on my show, had Briley on my show, Ranty Flat Earth, Nathan on my show, talked about it, made videos about it. So you include somebody in the community for them to just then turn and use strawman arguments against you and try to make you look bad. I mean, it's just sad. That's
Let
all.
them have it, man.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got to treat people
They're not
like
the first
that.
ones.
Yeah, exactly.
They have earned nothing but our disdain at this point, and I'll never recommend that show for anything. Well, and other than this, if you want to see people acting like complete idiots and morons and are so full of hatred that they have literally turned into the trolls that they're debating, there's your show. But don't come here and try and make Globebusters into that, because it'll never be that way.
All right,
So
let's drop it.
there you have it.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
guys.
that's kind of the doomed thing is if all you do is go around debating trolls, how long does it take before you become a troll yourself?
Yep. All right. Officially addressed. I don't even know who those people are. What? So I heard there's some crazy person. Ask people how his balls taste. I don't know his name though. So let's talk about the ether.
Yeah. Let's talk about the ether. Exactly. the spiritual ether, right? So okay, so I kind of resumed the movie. So if you've been watching it, with the subtitles on, you have picked up a little bit on what these subjects are experiencing with this phantom limb type of thing. And like I said, it's interesting because these phenomena actually show up in methods of photography. And just to show that there are other flat earthers that believe in this stuff, I'm going to play a clip that Eric Dubé did that actually showed up in here that I thought was absolutely amazing. And hear what Eric Dubé has to say about this. And we'll talk about that. So here we go.
In 1939, Russian scientist Semyon Kirlian accidentally discovered that if an object on a photographic plate is subjected to a strong enough electrical charge, an image is created on the plate. By photographing the coronal discharge that occurs between an electrically grounded object and the electrode generating the field, the sparks captured on film show multicolored, multi-frequency energy waves ranging from below infrared to above ultraviolet. These images have since become known as Kirlian photography or biofield electrography. Kirlian photography has now been studied and tested extensively in many reputable laboratories around the world and has shown consistent color, shape, and frequency correlations with various emotional and physical states. For example, UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute's Dr. Thelma Moss has recorded consistent patterns correlating fingertip coronas with specific emotions. Healthy, happy, relaxed subjects regularly exhibit quarter-inch wide blue and white coronas, while stressed, anxious, or nervous subjects consistently exhibit blotchy red coronas. In another study, she found that when photographed together, close friends generate brighter and more convergent coronas than strangers. Being photographed with strict authority figures produces smaller coronas, while being photographed with unassuming, unintimidating people produces larger coronas. When two people place their fingers on the same film, both images always come out clearly, but if they look into each other's eyes while the photo is taken, one of the fingerprints is blanked out and disappears. Dr. Moss's strange findings sparked interest at the U.S. Heuristic Institute, where they performed their own Kirlian biofield experiments with intimate couples. When partners were instructed to place their fingers on the film and focus unpleasant, unloving thoughts towards one another, their coronal patterns did not merge at all. When the couples focused pleasant, loving thoughts towards one another, their patterns began to merge. And when they kissed each other during the photographs, their coronal boundaries dissolved into one. Some people were even able to withhold their coronas by tensing all the muscles in their bodies.
Okay, so what's interesting about that, right, is what we're seeing is this energy being photographed by the Carillion photography. A lot of people would call this another form of the ether, which would be called the chi. Okay, now if you guys have not seen some of the dramatic demonstrations that have been done by people, masters of chi manipulation, wow, you're really missing something amazing. But that's maybe something I can pull up and give you guys a taste of. But it is absolutely amazing when you can focus this energy in your body, um, what it can do to your reality instantaneously, right? So they can photograph it, they can watch people perform unbelievable feats of strength, endurance, all kinds of things with it. And all this stuff, all this evidence. So I don't know if they can put it through an IVDV thing or not, don't really care. But the demonstrations that they do give to me tells me that there is something to this, and
Well, yeah,
that
Walter
the
Lewin even does a demonstration that shows that the potential in your right hand is different than the potential in your left hand. There is a difference in potential between your hands. So one has, you'd call positive and the other negative if you want. But yeah, there's a difference there. And they say people can build this up somehow. I've been trying. I can't do it yet. I don't know.
well, it's a matter of focus and meditation. Meditation is
I
the key
totally
to
need a
it.
video on that.
What, Kyle? I'm sorry.
I said I totally need to do a video on that because I'm actually pretty good at it. So yeah, I did some Quantum Touch is the book I read that taught me how to kind of get in tune with it. And the way you start off is just by sensation. And so you just start doing like a really light touch at the tip of your toes, and then you just kind of lightly touch and kind of bring that sensation. You're just feeling all the sensation you have and bringing that up from your toes all the way up your knees, your hips, and then all the way up and then out through your arms. And then you just kind of think about that residual feeling after you just barely like you lightly touched your arm, okay, and you just feel that residual feeling lingering after you're not touching it anymore, and then just kind of focus that energy coming all the way up through your fingertips until you can actually start to feel this energy that's coming out of your fingertips. And what's interesting about that is physics.org actually talks about how you can use your hands as an infrared light source, which is really fascinating to me. And because when like infrared, like I've heard about using that as a heat source, right? They've got infrared lamps that you can use for heating things. And if I'm not mistaken at that, but anyways, with that, you can actually feel like your hands get warmer as you do that. And it's just a really fascinating thing. And so I'll go do this with like my kids, and I'll kind of put my hand up there next to theirs. I'm like, okay, can you feel this? Because when you do this, it literally feels like a magnetic kind of energy coming out of your hands. And like, you can make your hands feel like they're like attracting each other, or you can even like make it so they're like, they feel like they're repulsing each other. And it's just really, really fascinating. But you can use this, and in Quantum Touch, it teaches you how to use this energy and build it up to the point that you can actually use it for healing processes. And so one famous experiment that goes down in history is using this to get rid of tumors. And
Yes.
yeah, I'm not quite that good at it yet.
That one is amazing.
Yeah, I'm not that good at it yet, but I do have a rat right now that has a tumor. And so I'm like, I could try practicing on this rat to get rid of this tumor, and it's going to take some time, but yeah,
there are
it's an
live
interesting thing.
demonstrations with people. They have a patient under ultrasound, right? And they're looking at the tumor under ultrasound, and these Chinese practitioners are basically directing chi energy at it. And as they are they are directing energy and also kind of chanting something to the effect of "You're already cured. You're already cured." What happens is the tumor live, on the ultrasound shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and to the point where it just disappears. That is absolutely mind-boggling.
There's a
I've
whole
seen.
group of them and they do that, and I really think there's like some harmonics that goes into it, kind of having multiple people kind of combining their chi to work on this process. And yeah, it's fascinating. I just think about like if you've harmonized your voice and how there's a sudden change in there. You can feel it when you like harmonize with someone else's voice, and it can happen that way with just your spiritual energy. And I just think about, just being intimate with your wife, and there's a deeper sense of connection there that is not just on a physical level, but it's also on a spiritual level. And so with my wife, like I feel like I just want her as a part of my heart, and it's a deeper sense of connection, which is very spiritual as much as anything else.
Absolutely. All right. So I found the other video I'm going to show you here after this, but yeah, it's some amazing demonstrations of chi, which again is just another form of the ether, and it's pretty extraordinary stuff. But let's continue on and listen to the rest of Eric's presentation and go from there. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, here we go.
In experiments.
Oh, and guys, I know the volume is low. I can't do anything about it, but read the subtitles or turn your volume up, and also, if you want to listen to it independently, the link to this video is in the show notes already, so you can go to it right now. Here we go.
With Dr. J.L. Hickman, psychic Uri Geller was able to consciously direct the shape of his fingertip coronas, making circles, squares, straight lines, and triangles at will. The International Kirlian Research Association released that the German magazine Esoterra describes an interpersonal study conducted with Kirlian photography. 2 individuals in a psychiatrist's office were asked to put their fingers next to each other and take a picture. They were asked to return once a week for 3 weeks. The Kirlian photos revealed the man to be very attracted to this woman, large, expansive corona in her direction. But her corona discharge indicated that she did not feel an attraction towards him, small, tight corona. The second week revealed the man to be extremely persistent, and it looked as if she might be more responsive, slightly converging coronas. The third week shows 2 bright, happy coronas blending, and we are told that they are living happily ever after. Dr. Moss also conducted experiments showing that cancerous tissue is easily distinguished from healthy tissue using Kirlian imaging. In one study, she was able to separate 100 healthy control rats from 100 other rats injected with cancer simply by the dramatic difference in corona emanations. Romanian Dr. Lon Dumitrescu also used Kirlian imaging to detect cancer tissue. He screened 6,000 industrial workers for cancer and found 47 malignant tumors, while conventional doctors found only 41. By analyzing the coronal discharge channels, their geometry, color, and energetics, he was able to detect cancer better than traditional imaging and laboratory tests. Various studies involving plant coronas have gleaned interesting information as well. For example, the viability of seeds can be determined by Kirlian images, since fertile seeds show much larger coronal ejections than dead seeds. Healthy seeds have a deep blue aura, and as the root tips sprout, they show up pinkish red, indicating where the most active growth is taking place. Researchers also found that dew forms on plant leaves in exactly the same locations as maximum flare patterns. They found that male plant stamens always come out blue, while the female ovary photographs are always gold. And most impressively, when a leaf is torn in half, then photographed, the outline of the entire leaf is still clearly visible in its discharge pattern.
I would love to learn how to do this.
Well, actually, there are several tutorials on how to do things like this. And I have a feeling that Zack is going to want to build one of these.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
I've looked into it. It's a little pricey. One of these days, it's on my bucket list for sure.
Yeah, well, maybe we can crowdfund. It depends on if people are into it and they want to see more work on it, by all means, just let me know. And Billy Zig, it is already linked in the comments. It's already there. It says it's under the part that says highlighted video, the Etheric Soul Unveiled, and there's a link right underneath the Glowbusters logo. You can't miss it, Billy Zig. All
I
right.
love the word he's using here continually. He calls it a corona because that's exactly what it feels like. When I think of corona, it's like I think of the corona of the sun, this energy that's coming or emanating off of the sun, and that's what it feels like with your spirit when you've got this. It's corona coming out of your hands. It's cool.
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly what is going on here. It is a corona discharge. And the interesting thing about this is this is what the Springmeyer book was talking about when they were talking about how they could actually somehow play back events that had happened um, in a room for, they said, up to 7 days. And believe it or not, I don't know. It's possible, but when you see things like this, you have to wonder, you know. And for me personally, it makes me want to look into it to see, what else is possible in this realm that, people that want to gatekeep, like, our friends over at FED, are preventing us from knowing because they, we're shamed by what we investigate. So it's just not going to happen. So I want to know about it. I know a lot of people are very much interested in the same thing. And yeah, if people are interested in this, I will be happy to do more information on it. This is the kind of stuff I live for and have studied for 30 plus years. So there you have it. So let's go back to Eric.
Evidence of the energy body exists, and a number of different sources document it. The first of these is Russian engineer Semya Kurlian, who discovered that living tissue emits electromagnetic force fields that show up on photosensitive paper. Using his photographic technique, a leaf with a portion of it cut out still shows the outline of its missing part. Even though it is not there physically, the photograph shows an outline as if it was. This prompts suggestions that Kurlian photography reveals the energy body. Kurlian photographs show energy emanating from the body. A picture of a hand, for example, depicts the fingers illuminated by energy. If two people touch fingertips, the energy appears to fight until both people accept the presence of the other. Another interesting case involves people who have amputated feet and legs. These people frequently report intense pain originating from phantom limbs. When a person places their hand on the area of pain, where the missing limb would be, and massages it as if there was a hand or limb there, the pain stops. At the point of death, the human body inexplicably loses several ounces of weight. Studies have also shown that when photographed with light-sensitive film, for an amount of nanoseconds, less than a second, a large illumination expands from the body and disappears upon death. These examples all point toward the conclusion that a separate body or being composed of energy inhabits the physical human body. The bioelectric fields captured by Kurlian photographs are postulated by many to be an expression of the aura, representing our chi life force energy. Psychics, mystics, and shamans the world over in traditions including Christian, Chinese, Japanese, Egyptian, and Tibetan have all talked about being able to see a faint multicolored corona or halo around people's physical bodies and heads. This aura emanates from the energy body, which exists within and permeates the physical body. Healthy, positive, and spiritual people are said to have glowing white gold auras, while unhealthy, negative, or immoral people have more subdued, darker color auras. Each person's aura is said to be unique, but constantly changing based on thoughts, mood, disease, environment, and other factors. Experiments with Kurlian photographs and bioelectrography have proved very consistent with ancient definitions of the aura. Michael Talbot wrote, "One mystical phenomenon that appears to involve the ability to see reality's frequency aspects is the aura, or human energy field. The notion that there is a subtle field of energy around the human body, a halo-like envelope of light that exists just beyond normal human perception, can be found in many ancient traditions. In India, sacred writings that date back over 5,000 years refer to this life energy as prana. In China, since the 3rd millennium BC, it has been called qi. and is believed to be the energy that flows through the acupuncture meridian system. Kabbalah, a Jewish mystical philosophy that arose in the 6th century BC, calls this vital principle nephesh and teaches that an egg-shaped bubble of iridescence surrounds every human body.
So isn't it interesting that it's seeming like every religious philosophy, that's out there, buried deep down in the basement of their teachings, that the ancients knew about all of this stuff, knew about these energies, knew about the mysteries of how reality manifests into our world. It's been there in front of our face forever, but we have listened to mainstream science for so long, who tells us that, well, if you can't bean count it, it isn't there, right? We have listened to it for so long that we have written it off as quackery. And, me personally, I'm not willing to buy that anymore. I simply am not. I have seen too many things that happen when people have the correct attitude and energy towards something, and how it can literally perform miracles in your life. And if you think about your life critically and you're honest with yourself, you're going to find that you've experienced it too. The problem
And you
is
are, oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
Bob. I was just going to say you're 100% correct when you're talking about all these ancient civilizations. As far as the story goes, I mean, you can go back and look the different sephirots. This is how they show the picture with the chakras going down the center and the little arms coming off and all connecting together. All of these ancient cultures had their own version of this. Many of them are almost exactly alike, and some of them have some a little bit different, but it's all pretty much the exact same thing with just a couple dots moved here and there. But they all had this. Every one of these ancient cultures had this. And Cami and I have done videos on this about the Sephiroth and just how it dealt with the spiritual realm. This is how you reach enlightenment, by working on these certain things.
Yeah, exactly. They tell us that, they give us all this information via symbology put right there in front of our face. And, there are people like my wife, Cami, who has a gift in being able to decode that, right? To understand what they are saying. And, what she's dug up on the Sephiroth is nothing short of absolutely amazing, and how it relates to every facet of this reality, from the magnetic patterns that have been drawn, to our understanding of it. It's absolutely incredible. And if we don't start listening to some of this information, and kind of set mainstream science aside a little bit. I'm not saying totally, but you need to take a little bit of it with a grain of salt, because let's face it, there's an agenda behind mainstream science to disconnect you from the real world. And when I say the real world, I mean that there is every bit as much of a spiritual realm, um, that is involved in this consciousness as there is what we're perceiving as a physical realm. And people that believe that the physical realm is all there is to it, I feel sorry for you, because you
Yeah.
have really missed the boat.
And they don't only withdraw telling you this information, they actually hide it from you and then scare you into thinking that it's wrong or evil. It's because it's occulted. Occulted just means to cover, to
Yeah,
hide
to
something.
cover up, to hide it. Yeah.
It's willfully using just half a deck of cards and trying to pretend the other half doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. So, when God created us, he gave us the ability and the tools, um, to be able to find out what we want to know. It's all out there. The problem is are you going to let other people tell you what is valid information and what is not? Or are you going to look at it with an open mind and then you decide, right? Because, hey, I'm in this lifetime and this is my life and I'm living it, and what I decide for my life goes, right? I am sick and tired of others telling me what to do, how to think, and I'm sure you all are too. This is why we have the truth movement and is making such a comeback and an uprising these days, because we are sick of being dictated to. It's just not going to happen anymore. And like I said, there's something about the law of free will, and this gets into some kind of philosophical areas. But when you truly have the intention of finding something out, there's something about the universe that dictates that it must provide that information to you. I can't explain it, but I know that it's true. And if you really start working with that type of a mindset, you'll find it's true also. So that's that's why I like to look at things that are really, you know, not accepted necessarily by the mainstream, because the mainstream is a bunch of crap. So there you have it. So there's only about 3 minutes left of this video, and I'll play that, and then I will show you some chi demonstrations, which I think is going to absolutely blow your mind. And then we will move forward to the other part of what we want to present to you today. So here we go.
In their book Future Science, writer John White and parapsychologist Stanley Krippner list 97 different cultures that refer to the aura with 97 different names. Adrian Cooper wrote, "The aura is also an extremely accurate indicator of spiritual attainment. Highly spiritual, evolved people will be instantly recognizable by a vivid, clean, dynamic aura, the most prominent feature of which is an intense, bright golden yellow area extending from and around the crown of the head. Sometimes the aura can be so intense it can even be viewed by people not usually possessing the ability of auric vision. It is also this intense golden aura around the head of highly spiritual people that gives rise to the so-called halo, as often, for example, depicted around the head of Jesus or a saint. Skeptics claim that Kirlian photography is merely capturing variances in pressure, humidity, temperature, voltage, etc., and not some mystical aura. It is true that New Age fairs and internet sites sell aura cameras, often marketing them as Kirlian cameras. These are indeed misleading and serve no practical purpose beyond that of a mood ring. However, electrophysiological studies have shown that corona emanation of true Kirlian photographs does not relate to temperature, perspiration, galvanic skin response, vasoconstrictions, or dilations. While it may be easy for some to discount 97 traditions around the world and their descriptions of the aura, it is much harder to discount Dr. Moss and Dr. Dumitrescu's amazing work with cancer detection, or the Heuristic Institute's results involving couples. Dr. Edward Condrit wrote, "The greatest advance in the utilization of Kirlian photography was made by the efforts of the German doctor Peter Mandel, who was trained as an acupuncturist. He observed that by treating disease states with acupuncture points, the corresponding deficiencies in the Kirlian photograph would change. After years of research, Dr. Mandel has developed a diagnostic and treatment program based on Kirlian analysis. Disease states are caused by energy blockages. The Kirlian photograph helps to determine the overall energy flow of the body and locations of energy blockage, which are manifested in the disease state. Dr. Mandel has categorized types of energy patterns on the Kirlian into endocrine, toxic, and degenerative. Endocrine is the pre-disease state. The patient has symptoms, but there is no discernible pathology. The Kirlian can be extremely valuable in locating the area of blockage. The second type of disturbance in the energy pattern is the toxic state. This is when tissue changes develop, such as inflammation, congestion, and blockages of energy flow in the body. The third type is the degenerative type, where the body begins to show destructive tissue changes.
Years ago, I'm just thinking here that I was just doing this today at church. I was just sitting next to my daughter in the middle of our meeting, and just kind of focusing my chi with her. And as I was doing that, I was noticing I was having like a sore spot on my hand. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," and I didn't put together what the sore spot was until Eric Dubé just mentioned that about these blockages in our chakra flow, and I was like, "Oh," because I was able to pinpoint that spot on my arm, like up in my elbow, and then kind of like resolve that point. And then after that, I was able to the pain went away, and I was able to move this forward smoothly. So I'm seeing exactly what he's talking about. I didn't know what was going on until he mentioned it.
Yeah, it is amazing, isn't it? Um, so so what do you guys think about this so far, Austin and Jeran? You've been kind of quiet. What do you think about this alternate idea of the ether or the body's form of it in the form of chi?
I think it's very interesting. I'm just trying to soak it in. I don't know. I'm intrigued though. I would like to look further into it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that because that's a really, really good thing to want to look into because these are the kind of things that are going to unlock life's mysteries for you. Um, and for everybody that looks into them. And that's why so many people are breaking away from the mainstream type of thinking and thinking that, science is going to answer every single question for us. Because frankly, mainstream science thinks all of this is quackery. And, if I were to put the metaphysical sciences, if you will, up against the strict scientific method, I think I'm probably going to wind up on the side of the metaphysical sciences and conclusions, probably the majority of the time. Not all the time, but probably the majority of the time. And I would think that a lot of people, at least from my experience, those who have looked into this seem to think the same thing because the answers are not, I mean, even though they're kind of in plain sight, you have to set your intention to finding them, and then the universe will grant that desire. And it happens. So what do you think, Jeran? You've been quiet about this.
No, I think I don't know if you guys saw the show last night, but I had that guy Bruce Lipton doing a presentation about how
I love him.
Yeah, and he was talking about, originally they would strap these probes to your head and they could, figure out your thoughts or see that your brain was, and now they've got I can't remember the name of it, magneto encephalogram or something like that, that the detectors are way outside your head. So when we think things, when we say things, or not even say, when we just think things, they go out into a field of some type.
Field of nothing, Jeran. You didn't know? Yeah, I would say any knowledge.
What is that noise?
Yeah, I'm getting feedback.
Somebody have a speaker on and not using headphones?
Now it's gone.
I would say any epistemology that presupposes a rigid, definitive boundary separating physics and metaphysics is a futile pursuit. So automatically can't fully explain what's going on. Automatically.
I agree. And so, yeah, that's why it's really important to keep an open mind about things. And again, when you find people are deliberately trying to keep you from specific information, that should raise a big red flag. A big red flag. Because this is part of the agenda. This unseen realm, this occult, does not want to be brought to the light of day, because this empowers people. And when you understand what's going on and how much power you actually do have, and how much control over you do have in the environment around you, then we could take down the elite in 2 seconds flat, and they know it, right? So, and
I've seen some great videos in the past that just openly acknowledge where academia is trying to erase everything that's spiritual, everything that's divine, anything that's related to God. They're trying to eliminate all that, and they just openly acknowledge it. And I just wish I had the video like right here, but I don't. But I've seen some great stuff on that in the past.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. So one other thing I want to show you, just as kind of a demonstration, and again, this is the body's form of the ether. And remember what I said before. Oops, somebody jumped in. Oh, that's Zack. Okay, let's bring Zack in. I didn't know he jumped out. And let's do that. Okay, so I lost my train of thought. Well, anyway, I was going to introduce this video, and this video basically shows us some of the most amazing, miraculous things that people can do by manipulating this energy. And if you think this is hocus pocus, well, that's your opinion. You have every right to it. Many of us know better, and I do mean we know better, And it is very intriguing to the point where I want to put this type of philosophy into practice in my life, because right now, the way the world is everything is about bringing doom and despair. Um, Everything's an emergency. Everything is about how the end of the world is coming. We have no hope. It's all hopeless. And as a result of it, many of us are feeling it physically. I mean, me personally, I've been sick so many times, so often lately, that there's no doubt in my mind I am being attacked by something. And I think a lot of it has to do with my efforts to disseminate this information. Is something I'm trying to tell you today, but that's not going to stop me from doing it, because I want people to have this power, and I need to integrate it back into my own life, to make a better life for me and my family. And so, without further ado, this is a Spacebusters video that will show us some of the most amazing demonstrations of chi. And if anybody has any comments on it, just go ahead and stop me and make your comment. So here we go. Now, if that would have happened to any one of us, it would have chopped our head off. I think you know that, right? But these people are able to put up an energetic barrier that protects them, um, for wherever part of their body they need to be shielded. And I'm talking about even their eyes. And that's coming up. You'll see that. I mean, they actually do stuff like this with their eyes. Um, I'm sorry. There's no way you can fake that. So let's continue.
I think it's called like steel body or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different names for it in a lot of different cultures, but you know, the thing is that every culture, like I said, when you dig down in the basement of their writings and their documentation, all of them speak about this in one form or another. And of course, right now they're showing Star Wars and the Force, and I think the Force is a really good description, for what we're talking about here. And that force is the same as being able to use, shooting electricity from your fingertips to manifesting things in the very near or instantaneous future, all kinds of stuff like that. It is just amazing. And every human being is capable of doing this stuff, guys. They really are. Let's
I'm
continue.
thinking back to that list that Eric Dubé was giving. Oh, it's just pressure. Oh, it's just electricity. Oh, it's just humidity. I'm like, okay, these are all different things that are effects of what's going on. These are all sensations. These are all they're not the cause, they're the effect. It's showing that there's a visible evidence of something going on here.
Exactly. Exactly. And, mainstream science, again, will try and debunk it by saying, um, whatever they want to say about it. They like Harvard. We didn't get to watch that part of that last video, but if you watch that last video, the 2.5 hour one, it's really interesting that the big mainstream medical schools will come up with stuff like, oh, they're faking it. They were in on it. The actor uh, had a post hypnotic suggestion, all these ridiculous excuses, right? Instead of just considering the possibility that what they were seeing was real. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be skeptical. By God, you need to be skeptical, but you also need to be able to balance that with a degree of open mindedness. It's as simple as that. So this is really amazing stuff, guys. And like I said, This is the kind of stuff that when you understand it and believe in it, and believe me, when I say believe in it, belief is a huge factor as to whether or not this works for you. If you believe in something, that absolutely dictates your reality. Many of you heard me talk about the story about my friend Chuck, right? Who was convinced that every time he drove everywhere, that people cut him off. Well, we went for a ride one day, and sure enough, that's absolutely what happened. We got cut off like 5 times in 20 minutes. I was blown away. And I was just looking at him going, do you have any idea how powerful you are? Because you're the one that's manifesting this, not the world being against you. Okay. So it's astounding. So anyway, let's get back to the demonstrations here. And like I said, just chime in if you want to say something.
It is said that the ether is the ever-present field that connects all things. Yes, everything is connected. Every inch of the ether consists of infinite amounts of free energy. This is the elite's greatest secret. If science were to reveal that the ether exists, it would destroy the entire foundation of mainstream Jesuit atomism and particle science. Denying the ether would...
And quantum mechanics could kiss its butt goodbye. But
yo, legendary. We need to shoot this out around the community. Be like, come on, man, take notes.
Yeah,
I'm already
this-
perfect summary already.
Adams, bro. That was great.
I know. There's atomism. Get real, bro. All right, let's continue.
be like a fish, denying that it is surrounded by water. By no coincidence, ancient Vedic and Taoist traditions speak of and still utilize today this same exact ever-present energy field that goes by many names. Prana, Chi. The brilliant Wilhelm Reich called this field Orgon, and even George Lucas called it the Force in his popular Star Wars series. By no coincidence, his Lucasfilm logo features the flat Earth and dome with the opposing vortex lines within it. But that's none of my business. Many generations grew up watching Star Wars and fantasizing about how cool it would be to have the Jedi powers of the Force. But as we're about to see, we all do have that power dormant within us, or rather both all around us and within us, and instantly accessible through intense mind and physical training. There is an old saying, mind over matter, but this is a fallacy. It should rather be, mind is what matters, because matter is not atomic particles, and thought and mind come from the exact same energy source that everything physical comes from.
I think it's light.
You think it's light? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think matter's a modality of light.
I think everything's a modality of light because really you could call ether light. You know, the light forms so many things. But again, I think the reason that it has so many different names is maybe to cause a little bit of confusion, or maybe it's just different cultures, you know, that's their word for it or whatever. But yeah, I absolutely agree. Light would be a good description for all of it.
Seems like, yeah, not our visible light spectrum, blah blah blah. You have to define it. But when he said prana, like the way Tesla would say it, he used the word prana. He would say that there's an ether and then there's the life-giving force within the ether called the prana that, you know, puts it in a dynamic state. And once it's in motion, that's what we perceive in the physical world and its physical manifestations. Because
Yeah,
of
in the
dynamic
Bible, they
state.
say it's the voice of God, right? It's the voice that created everything with his
Yeah.
voice, frequencies and vibrations. Yeah.
And that makes you think like a proper definition of energy might actually include a will or like intent or intelligence, but that's
Yeah,
pretty
and
deep.
wasn't the voice of God supposedly Metatron, right? And
Well,
I
that's
take
the voice that speaks to humans,
right,
because a human being can't take
right.
the
But
awesome
the
power
interesting
of
thing
God's
about
voice.
Metatron, right, is if you look at the Metatron cube, or as far as a sacred geometric symbol, it has all the platonic solids incorporated into it, which, is that a coincidence? Yeah, maybe, but I think not. Um, you know, again, form and sound, vibration, all of this stuff is absolutely linked together. And, we have the ability in our consciousness to focus that energy, and some pretty amazing things can come out of it. So let's continue.
Scientism and even many religions falsely program us to believe that we were born into this realm, like a termite or ant moving into a tree, rather than born out of this realm, as part of this realm, like a leaf or acorn growing on a tree. Western psychology plays the same trick by convincing us that our mind, thoughts, and ego are bad things. Foreign invaders somehow bombarding us from some other dimension, when nothing could be further from the truth. The so-called matrix is nothing more than programming the false belief into people that we are somehow separate from everything around us, a cosmic accident, or born into sin, rather than a symbiotic space-time fractile of the entire whole, born out of perfect harmony and purpose, perpetually dancing together with the whole. Are we walking up the mountain, fighting a foreign resistance force through sheer will and struggle, or is that mountain lifting us up because we desire to go up higher than we are to have a look around? The truth is that there is no difference between the two. We have just been programmed not to understand this simple concept. We're two sides to the same coin and two wings of the same bird. But make no mistake, there is only one coin and only one bird. Back to the Star Wars films. Why is the mighty technologically advanced Empire so hell-bent on getting rid of a few dozen bathrobe-wearing Jedi who have mastered control of the Æther, or the Cheether? For the exact same reason the controlling parasites of this world don't want 7 billion people to wake up and figure out they are Jedis with access to the real-life powers of the etheric force.
This troupe of martial artists.
And I got to tell you guys, I believe that wholeheartedly. We do have that power. And it's just a matter of developing it. And there are people that live it. I mean, think about people that that, everything they touch turns to gold. Everything they do just seems to work out for them. And then look at their attitude. They're always positive, and they're always generous, and they're always a good person, right? And that is part of this energy, right? To be powerful, you have to be loving. I think that's a big key in all of this. So let's continue.
Use chi to perform the kind of stunts that seem beyond the normal capabilities of men. They stake their lives on being able to generate chi within their bodies and direct it to the parts that need protection.
So the next thing he's going to do is direct the chi into one part of his body, whack himself with a big knife and not get cut, because he's directing it into that single part of his body.
In Chinese culture, chi is the energy that drives all living things. It is to be found in breath and blood and can be absorbed from the universe and compressed in the body.
Oh my God.
Afterwards, he turned his back, because what he's doing is he's getting rid of that excessive chi in that one place, because if you leave it there, it's no good for you. The thing that amazes me about this is how they're improving their natural abilities. They're not saying that they can fly or anything like that. They're saying they can improve their natural abilities to such a degree that they can do these things without getting hurt. So the next thing these guys are going to do is show us this traditional exercise of sticking a pole, a solid iron pole in their throat, to show that they've built chi up there.
And they dare
Might
say
look like
this
a bit of
stuff
a
is
circus
not
act.
testable.
The reason
right?
they do
Oh, it's not provable.
Yeah,
Whatever.
yeah, you guys
Whatever.
go try this. See how long before you're dead because you cut your head off, or you rammed a pole through your esophagus, or whatever. Yeah, test it by all means. Let's continue.
This is to show that they can direct the chi to wherever they want to. Yeah, they have to use chi to
Don't
do this
recommend
because there's
jumping
no
right
muscle
into these
there.
tests.
So they have to use real
Take
chi. Otherwise it's
practice,
just
right?
I'm sorry, Kyle, say again.
I don't recommend just jumping straight into these tests. It takes practice to become an expert.
No, I can't believe. I mean, look at these two guys. They're bending the steel on that thin layer of skin, covering up your esophagus. This is just mind-boggling that they can do this, and they come away absolutely uninjured. Absolutely uninjured. And when he does it with his eyes, man, I just went, "Oh my God." Well, you'll see. Let's continue.
skewer them. That's an iron bar.
哎呀，气就带掉了，肾生水，
肾，
哎，肾最重要，所以气会可以壮阳，哎，yes。
Okay, so chi gets your kidneys strong. Okay, well, I mean, get it up. Yeah, get it right up there.
Yeah, there's no way you can fake that.
He said practicing qigong is good for the kidneys, and if you've got good kidneys, you've got a good.
Yeah, all right.
And I don't mean a good upper hook either. That's the thing they just used on their throats. That's something you don't see every day. The next thing Mr. Pan's going to do certainly isn't good for your health. He's going to get this guillotine, put his throat on it, and have somebody hit him with a sledgehammer.
The Chinese guillotine, sharp enough to prepare dinner, designed to sever heads.
Do not try this at home. The worst thing is waiting, innit? You're just waiting to get whacked with a sledgehammer.
所以我们把气啊提到我们整个颈部的周围，把气锁住。
So he said it's all right for him to talk now because he brings up the chi and puts it all around his neck to protect that. We've all seen bed of nails before, but this is a little bit different. He's actually going to stand on him. Not only is he going to jump on him, he's going to jab him in the throat with a sword.
这个是所谓的真正的气功。好，一般人3成的功力没有办法做这个动作，一定要练到6、7成，才有办法符合这个。对。
That is absolutely unbelievable. That sword to his throat, and he just bent it in two. I mean, wow.
Now, I've seen the bed of nails, and I know how they do that, but with him jumping on him and changing his weight, I mean, because he jumped first near his stomach, it looked like, and then he put his front foot up near his chest. And the whole thing about the bed of nails is you have it spread out evenly. So I wonder what his back looks like. Oh my God.
Oh, they'll show up. But the thing that's interesting about this is, yeah, there are definitely some things that, people put on these demonstrations, and they are illusion, right? Like magicians doing it, without a doubt, there's illusion. But then there are other people that are true chi practitioners that do stuff like this, and it's legit. It really is. And so, again, the reason that they have magicians that are able to so-called, debunk it, right? Oh yeah, we can do that. It's just a big trick, big parlor trick, is so that they can discredit any validity that goes into this, right? They don't want people to understand that this ability is within you. Simple as that. Let's continue.
I felt that sword, and that is a solid sword. It's not one of those bendy things.
Check it out,
Well,
Shaw.
he said that most people, when you're born, you've got 3 or 4% chi in your body. You practice qigong, you can get it up to 7%, and that allows you to be able to do things like this. That's unreal.
What you've got to do is pack loads of chi into your body, as well as getting rid of any negative energy. If you want it to work, you have to clear your mind and be completely relaxed. If you're hungry or thinking about home, just put it out of your head.
Okay. He's done it with the bicycle. Now he's going to have a go with the motorbike. He's got to keep concentrating now to keep his chi in his chest. If he doesn't, it's all right doing it with the bicycle, but now this bloke's going to do it with a motorbike, and they're heavy. You know, motorbikes are heavy. If he doesn't hold his concentration, this thing's going to puncture his lungs. Rather him than me.
Go!
Oh!
Okay.
God.
Yeah.
Feel the weight of that. That's got to be a couple 100 kilos. 没事啊。
就是甚至到眼睛，这是一个罩子。
到眼睛。
到眼睛都有办法。
眼睛。
对，眼睛。
是吗？
对。
Wow. I asked him, is there anywhere that you can't put chi? And he says, no, you can put it anywhere, even in his eyes, his eyeballs. So I guess these skills would have developed originally because a lot of kung fu, they hit to the balls, they hit to the throat, and they hit to the eyes. So if you can strengthen up, oh, you're joking, look at that. He's actually putting them right on his eyeballs. Oh, come on, mate. He's in there laughing, eh?
God, that makes me cringe.
So he's going to bend these iron rods. That is on his eyeballs. Oh.
Oh my God.
It's unreal, isn't it? It's unreal.
几只？
几只
？3只。
Wow. I'm asking how many fingers? 几只
？2只。
Oh.
试一下。Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
我喝一下。
哎，喝看看。哎。
I just want to make sure that this is real beer.
哎。气。
Yeah, that's his chi.
用力面延到手指。
Finger skill. He's going to put his chi from his mind into his fingers,
手指。
so he can break a solid metal bottle opener.
Yes.
Jesus.
Now that is playing with a full deck.
This is how he practices his
Yeah,
skill.
buddy.
2 finger press-ups. Wow. That's a real bottle of wine. Chinese wine.
Yeah.
Tastes good, but he's about to waste it.
先要把气运到这里。
Okay, he's getting the chi into his elbow, and he's going to hit the bottle, and watch what happens. It's about transferring the power through something. This is how when he hits a body, the power goes inside the body and damages it. Wow, that is amazing.
我们原本里面就有气的，然后我本身把我的气帮它融合贯通，把这个气挤压，让它产生一种爆发力，它才会往下爆开。
这样子 The way he does.
So what do you think, guys? Is this just the product of physical, outcome, or is there directed energy and directed intent behind these feats? I know what I think, but I'm interested in what you think. I mean, let me know. Tell me what you think.
I know we all have the ability. It's kind of like building up a callus. Well, we can do this with our bones as well. And a lot of these guys, they start off with like rice or something like that, and they'll just take their hands and dig it into it. And then they work their way up to like big, rugged stones. Eventually, over the years of just running their hands into things, and it makes their hand like hard like a rock. Now, I don't know. I mean, some of this stuff I could see possibly doing it like that, but like the neck stuff and the eye stuff, and I mean, there's no muscle there. There's no.
Yeah, but anything you can build up any part of your body, and I think it's more intent, right? So if you've got intent, you want something bad enough, and you work at it. I think that you can do it.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
about, that's right, the
absolutely.
intention. You're right, Jeran. And that intention literally, feeds the manifestation of it happening.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of this, right? That things, people can do things that they have no idea that they can do. We've all heard the stories about, like, the guy that was working under his car and the car fell off the jacks and pinned it, and either his friend or his little child was there and lifted the car up off of him. Why? Because they're not thinking about what they can't do at the time.
Right.
They have a very single focused goal at that time. So, the mind is all powerful, absolutely all powerful.
And we can actually imbue this power into other things. I know this because I did this when I was practicing alchemy. I was bald as a cue ball on top, like no hair whatsoever, not even a little, the one sticking out all by itself, no hair on top when I was 32. Started practicing alchemy 3-4 years later after I was kind of into it. I was a lot more spiritual, and I asked my plants to grow my hair back. I said, together we're going to do this. And the 6 months while I was growing them, I talked to them every day, asked them to do this for me. While I was making the tinctures, I did this. And 6 months after I started taking the tinctures, my hair started growing back. No joke. I had people at work offering me thousands of dollars to, let's go get a patent on this. And it's like, dude, here's the ingredients. Take it. I don't think it's the ingredients I used. I just used plants I was already like going to grow in my garden. It wasn't anything I went out and grabbed. And I grew my hair back. And that's when I started realizing that all this stuff is real, that we have powers that are beyond even what we comprehend. But you have to be careful with it.
You have to be careful with it, and then also don't fall for the tricks of like the book The Secret, which basically says write yourself a check and you'll get money.
Yeah, that's
right.
nonsense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and they put stuff like that out, and that's why, by the way, that's why Jerry and Esther Hicks left that production, and they came out with another version without them. And I don't know if people knew this or not, but there were two versions. One of them did feature Jerry and Esther Hicks, and the other one didn't, because Jerry and Esther Hicks felt like they were completely alienating the true message behind these type of abilities, right?
Yeah,
So
you can't sit on the couch and eat salami and Lay's potato chips and get abs. It's just not going to work.
No, never.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think the deep commerce, like, the mainstream definition of energy is the ability or capacity to do work. And that's obviously not a definition of what energy is. It's just a definition of what it does. Like, tell me what a human is. Humans can breathe oxygen. Like, okay, cool. But what is a human, right? Like, you didn't answer the question. And so there's not really a satisfactory answer anywhere in mainstream academia. And so I kind of say pressure mediation to a lot of people if they ask me what I think. But I actually think that the proper definition may be intent. And what we call energy is actually the expression or the dissipation or the release of that energy. So like when you see a bomb blow up, they're like, look at all that energy. That's the energy being released, the way I see it. So long story short, I think that energy actually is intent. I think that's actually the definition of it. It's like the driving force, which means there's something in that scenario. If that's the case, then within the ether, there is this force of intent that maybe you could say could be tapped into or interacted with and then dynamically, physically manifest. I know that's speculation station, but I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in.
It's okay.
Now, when it comes to things like this, when I started learning was quantum touch, like in the beginning, but there's parts of quantum touch that I don't really like. They get way too monetized later on. And that's where I start to have like trust issues with them at some point. But the very beginning stages, there's some very legit stuff. And so, yeah, if you want to dive deeper into that, you can do so at your own risk, but I just had to get that out.
Yep. Okay, cool. So anyway, there's a lot more to this, and I will put this in the show notes because this is another one that's really fantastic. That kind of gives you a peek behind the abilities of some of these people. Actually, I want to show you this part too. And this guy, it's amazing because this next guy that they're going to highlight, his story is interesting. He has healed many people, and when he had a film crew, he finally let them see him do this stuff, and then they went out and he kind of carelessly caused some things to happen that shouldn't have happened. And then he said that his master came to him in a dream last night and totally chastised him for doing things like that when it shouldn't have ever been done, that way. They're very protective of those type of things, but this guy is pretty amazing. So let's play a little bit of this and then we'll move on.
Him, except for his training in waking them. Grounding this patient, my cameraman Joe is having to use all his weight to keep contact. She is pushing him away. He seems able to control the amplitude of this chi, like a dimmer switch, and it causes uncontrollable responses in the patients and their grounders.
I can barely keep my hand on you. To fly off, the electricity is so strong.
This mother unwittingly grounds her child. He won't sit still, so she's asked to hold him and grin and bear it. Sometimes signs of this passing energy can be seen in the transmitter too. This chi stuff is only the surface, he says, of the real adventure beneath, in the meditational technique. Projecting chi from the palm of the hand can also be used to resist rifle pellets, he says. First, you learn to distinguish between yin and yang chi in your body. Then how to pool it in your navel chakra. Then how to project it, he says. And it's the proportionate mixture between yin and yang which accounts for different effects, like pulling or pushing objects or igniting them. Then he gets really strange. He says that mastering yin chi is the key to the spirit world. There's a long tradition of Indonesian krisis being possessed by spirits. So people bring him their krisis to see if they're duds. Here, he says, he doesn't manipulate matter by projecting mixtures of yin and yang chi. He merely creates a field of yin energy in which, he says, if there's a spirit, it can manifest itself. So I invited a small group of scientists back from the United States with measuring equipment to test if DJ was for real. And if so, where might this energy belong on the electromagnetic spectrum? Catherine Cook, CEO of the Mind Science Foundation in Texas. Dr. Roger Nilsson, a Swedish medic and international racing sailor. Dr. Greg Simpson, a physicist from New York's Albert Einstein University, and Andreas Polak, one of DJ's Australian students. The visitors are confident they'll uncover him as a fraud in no time. Greg is the first guinea pig, and he's uncomfortable about showing that he can feel anything at all. Dr. Roger doesn't know what to expect. Out comes the metal detector, like the things they use in airports, to see if he has any concealed metal in his body. Then the voltmeter, to try and measure the chi. But how to get it to work? Where's the ground? What settings? DJ suggests that...
Well, the problem was that they don't occur in nature. There's your problem.
As his negative is his perineum, and his positive is his navel chakra, perhaps that's where the electrode should be attached. He doesn't stand on his dignity. He's eager to help, but still no readings. They're getting shocks off his arm, and now they're on the right settings, but the needle still isn't moving. DJ says it isn't electricity, it's chi.
It's 1, 2, up. I feel it in my whole body.
Yeah, so he is differentiating between electricity and the ether, aka the chi, which is a different modality, right? They are different modalities. And this is when you're trying to measure resistance, you don't use a voltmeter. When you're trying to measure sound, you don't use an ammeter. You have to have the right tool. But science, unfortunately, rarely has the right type of tool to measure these type of phenomenon, because they are trying to suppress it, first of all, and they're just looking in the wrong places, essentially. So it's no wonder that these scientists are not finding anything. They're not finding any trickery, and yet what they're feeling is very real. What they're seeing is very real. And you will find out that they can't explain it at all. But this guy has a phenomenal rate of healing, and he does what he does every single day. It's amazing.
I feel it at 0.3. I feel it in my legs. Shit.
But suspecting there's some tricky setup on his premises they can't find, they insist we all go to a randomly chosen hotel room several miles away to see if he can light a light bulb with his fingers. It doesn't ground on the wall. So Greg holds and grounds one wire, while DJ pumps chi through the other. The bulbs are LEDs, light-emitting diodes, which ignite in different colors according to the intensity of current.
Yes. On, off, on.
Brilliant.
Oh, you're blinking.
Things were going well. DJ was enjoying it too, until he invited us all out to lunch at his local, where he tried to push a chopstick through the table. He couldn't get it through the Formica surface, so he came up through an inch of wood from underneath. Not only did he draw his own blood, but a chopstick splinter had caught Alison here between the eyes, drawing more. The incident was laughed off apologetically, but next morning he was a different man, drawn and upset. He said he'd been visited all night by his long-dead master, raging that he'd broken the strict taboos of his sect, never to show off in public and never to cause harm.
Right. So anyway, that's enough of that. But yeah, it's very interesting, and they keep these things low key, for a reason. But these people are absolutely about, doing no harm and only helping, and not becoming spectacles. And that's very much against their creeds and stuff that they take. So pretty amazing stuff. But I think anybody that has seen a sufficient amount of these type of demonstrations, like I said, if you look at some Greg Braden material, he has the Chinese operation team that are shrinking that tumor, live on ultrasound. Absolutely amazing. Stuff like that happens all the time. So there you have it. Any comments?
Pretty crazy stuff, man. The
Yeah,
world is not
definitely.
what it seems materially.
Okay. All right. So let's shift gears now. And I know Zach wanted to cover some stuff about, let's see.
Yeah, the chat that Dave and Austin and Jeran and Hibbler had.
Okay.
With
when
Brian.
you sent me the 802.lecture6. Did you wanted that, or?
Yeah, lecture 6. It should be timestamped as well.
Okay. And let's put that in here.
And do you guys remember when he was talking about, the different potentials of the Earth and how that totally disavows
A&E.
electrostatics?
Yep.
Yeah, well, this is Walter Lewin explaining why mountaintops that have, a point hold more electric potential than a valley that has, it's concave.
Yep. Okay. So
that's how electricity works. I mean, the same thing with the nail on my Van de Graaff generator blowing all that air away. It was because it was at that point. The radius was so much smaller than the Van de Graaff that all the electricity was, well, not all of it, but most of it was rushing out the tip of that nail because it was at a point. That's how electrostatics works. And
yeah, that Bryant guy was just, he's indoctrinated. But what's funny about that is even PhDs, we did a show several years ago called Sunday Mass. And in that show, I quoted several PhDs on a simple question. What the hell is mass? What is it, right? Or what is energy? And the irony of it is that none of them had an answer that was commensurate with anybody else's. Everybody had a different take on it. And this is supposed to be science? I think there's a problem there, right? They can't even break down two of the most common variables in all of physics, mass and energy. They cannot even properly define them. And they expect the common layman to be able to do it. This is why everybody argues over, oh, well, the ether exists, the ether doesn't exist, because there is a faction that is going after the truth, and there's a faction that is trying to cover it up. And it's really not hard to tell which is which once you start looking into it. Okay. So this is Walter Lewin, and Walter Lewin is going to be talking about this, what Zach was just saying. And let me know when you want me to stop it. Okay, Zach?
Okie doke.
Okay, and here we go.
And so what comes out is the surface area A times the electric field E. The A and E are in the same direction, because remember, E is perpendicular to the surface of the equipotentials. And so this is all there is for the surface integral, and that is all the charge inside. Well, the charge inside is, of course, the surface charge density times the area A divided by epsilon zero. This is Gauss' law. And so you find immediately that the electric field is sigma divided by epsilon zero. So whenever you have a conductor, if you know the local surface charge density, you always know the local electric field. And since the surface charge density is going to be the highest here,
stop it right here,
even though the whole thing is in.
See where he pointed first up there? He said the surface density is going to be higher here, and he pointed to that spot at the top arrow.
Okay, right there.
And that's because, see how it's more like a mountain shaped, and the arrow in the bottom right is a lot flatter. So he says, even though it's all the same potential, the whole thing, the surface area will have more potential built up at that spot than it will at the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's explaining how we have different surface potentials here on Earth.
Right, and that's why
All
you
due to
see
the shape.
That's why you see in some of these Antiquitech films that they show the devices, the 0-point energy devices actually activating. They are a configuration of several pointed objects at the top of a crown, more or less, that has multiple sharp pointed ends on it, right? And that seems to be the most effective type of form for collecting this energy out of the air, out of the ether. Yep. So continue on. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And let me know when to stop again.
Okay.
Even though the whole thing is in equipotential, the electric field will also be higher here than it will be there. I can demonstrate this to you in a very simple way. I have here a cooking pan. And the cooking pan, I used to boil lobsters in there. It's a large pan. The cooking pan I'm going to charge up. And the cooking pan here has a radius, whatever it is, maybe 20 centimeters. But look here at the handle, how very small this radius is. So I'm going to put charge on there, and I'm going to convince you that I can scoop off more charge here where the radius is small than I can scoop off here. I have here a small flat spoon, and I'm going to put the spoon here on the surface here and on the surface there, and we're going to see from where we can scoop off the most charge. Still charge from the previous lecture. So here we see the electroscope that we have seen before. I'm going to charge this cooking pan with my favorite technique, which is the electrophorus. So we have the cat fur and we have the glass plate. I'm going to
Everybody thought it was so weird
cat fur.
that because I always bring my electrophorus to Flattoberfest just to show people it's one of the tools that we've used just understanding electricity. And when they always ask, well, what is this? Oh, it's cat fur. And they're like, ew, what? I was like, yeah, I don't know why, but they've always used cat fur. It creates a great charge, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. And of course, cats are, renowned for, people love cats. That they give this soothing effect. The Egyptians worshipped cats. There's just something electric about them, right? Pretty weird. Okay, so are we still going with this, Jack?
Yeah,
or-
just a little bit. He's going to show you right here. He's going to put a charge on that thing, and then he'll use his electroscope to show you that there's more charge gathered where the radius is much smaller than when the radius is large on the outside of the pot. The little handle will have a greater charge coming off of it than the I actually did this in a video, really bad video quality years ago when I was doing all of his reboots. Everything he did in his course up to a certain point, I tried to recreate on video just to show people that what he's doing here is it actually works. This isn't a parlor trick or anything like that. This is how it works. I wanted to know, and that's the best way to know, is to do it yourself.
Yeah, amen to that. All right, here we go.
Put it on, put my finger on, get a little shock, charge up the pen, put my finger on, get another shock, charge up the pen, and another one, charge up the pen, make sure that I get enough charge on there, rub the glass again, put it on top, put my finger on, charge, once more, and once more. Let's assume we have enough charge on there now. Here is my little spoon. I touch here the outside here of the can, of the pen, and go to the electroscope, and you see a little charge. It's very clear. What I want to show you now, it's very qualitative, is that when I touch here the handle, it's a very small radius that I can take off more charge. There we go. Substantially more. That's all I wanted to show you. So you've seen now in front of your own eyes for the first time that even though this is a conductor, that means that it is an equipotential, that the surface charge density right there is higher than the surface charge density here.
Okay.
Only if it is a sphere, of course, for...
And that's not to say that that's the only reason you would have different charge potentials on the surface. Running water underneath, what the surface is made of. If you have a giant piece of quartz there compared to just dirt, you could have different readings. I mean, there's so many different variables. This isn't the only reason, but this is how electricity works.
Right. And the thing about that what the hell was his name again? The guy you debated?
Bryant Myers.
Bryant. Yeah, Bryant. Is he was saying, oh, your electrostatic model doesn't work. I'm an expert on, Earth electric fields. I know that, it would vary way too much. But again, here we have somebody that is basing that on the mainstream paradigm that there are infinitely variable cosmic energies that are coming in, causing this charging of an upper equipotential of an upper Gaussian surface, even though they would never recognize it as that, instead of a flat Earth model. And
yeah, exactly. He was strawmanning it. He was also invoking the ionosphere. I said, "How high is that?" He said, "Oh, pretty high." They say it's 50 to 400 miles. So you're getting right up there, but we know they're lying, buddy. You know, like, oh, once we go up into space, you know, it wouldn't work. Like, okay, you know, what are you talking about?
Well,
What
yeah, and
particles are this vacuum that are conducting all this electricity, right?
and like I said, it's Walter Lewin. We've shown the video here before. You can go see it on my channel. I've put it up there a bunch of times, but he even says that the electric forces felt here on Earth are 10 to the 36 times stronger. That's 10 with 36 zeros behind it, stronger than any gravity that is felt here on Earth. And
Dude,
he even says this is including your own body for that matter. He says those words, quote, word
They
for
just
word.
hand wave dismissed that, and then what they try to talk about when something's neutral, and they like talk about like, so something's neutral and a neutron and all this stuff, and neutrons aren't electric, they have no charge. You look into it, yeah, they do. In your own little subatomic particle paradigm, they have charges like 1/3 or 2/3 elementary charge, and you know that's represented by E. And every single thing, even the neutron, everything they're talking about, it's all about charge, like
Everything.
literally all of it. It's just about, you know, they classify net charge, and they try to say it couldn't do anything because there's nothing there. It's like, dude, it couldn't be there, right? It couldn't be there without the charge. It's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the big thing that, you know, and that's where he's going to try and make his argument with you, Austin, when he debates you, is he's going to bring in the baller's paradigm to it, and that's great because he can't justify that. He cannot possibly show how that would yield 100 volt per meter equipotential lines of force that we measure all the way up to 100 kilometers, right? He can't do it. But again, under the flat Earth paradigm, where we are hypothesizing, or we're, you know, we have good evidence that there is a Gaussian plate at 100 kilometers. And, you know, for several reasons, I'm not going to go through them all again because there's a lot of them. You guys have all heard it. There's a lot of reasons why I believe that it's there. And even, you know, even these videos, even mainstream physics videos will tell you that when you have two Gaussian surfaces, you know, separated by X amount of distance, the charge field will break down linearly from bottom all the way to top, exactly like what we are seeing here and now, right? Richard Feynman measured it. It's there, but it only works in a flat Earth model. It does not work in a ball Earth model because they don't even know what the cosmic incoming energies are, let alone how they're being translated to the upper realms.
Yeah,
And
and I was just going to say, and Maxwell knew this so well that he had to change Ampere's equations of electricity and how it works to state that now we can have an ionosphere, that this electrostatic charge can travel through a vacuum and gather on something, which has never been recreated over 150 years later. Still has never
no,
been
there
recreated
has
in
to
a
be
lab.
something physical there. There has to be, because everything has, it's about charge potential, right? You can't charge something if there's no charge makeup to it, right?
Exactly.
So this whole idea of an ionosphere being created out of nothingness is bullshit. Point
Well, we
blank.
know the history too. There's an ad hoc excuse for Marconi's radio transmissions, right? So it's like, yeah, well, we don't have to believe all that. Like basically his argument is, if the flat Earth is impossible, if I put the globe on it, like okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically, you know, what we're trying to bring out, and that's why we're trying to create this model that shows people, well, yeah, we all know the ball Earth, or at least most of us do, and we're not really interested in it because it's a work of fiction. But there is a preponderance of evidence, and you know me, that's how I work, a preponderance of evidence that we are building that is showing not only the electric nature of this realm, but how it actually works and how mainstream physics validates exactly what we're saying about it and what we're seeing about it. And that's the part that's going to drive them absolutely loony. They cannot possibly let that stand. It goes against all 4, 8, or 12 years of their training, And oh my God, so I don't think anybody's ever going to convince that guy because he was,
Yeah,
he was
but
way indoctrinated. Go ahead, Austin.
it's beneficial still, in my opinion. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'll debate you. Like, hopefully we'll do it for 4 hours and we'll talk about all of this stuff. And because I think it's good, like, you're gonna hear this guy that used to teach, a physicist. He's got his little letters behind his name, so you guys can't say anything. And then we're gonna get into I would love to expose it. Like, I think that's a good thing. Like, I don't care if I convince him. I want other people to see intellectual conversation with someone that has all their degrees and credentials just to be completely exposed, or their position be exposed, right? Because it fights the cognitus that everyone thinks, oh, I'm going against scientists and physicists. And so, yeah, like, I think it's whatever. That dude wasn't trying to hear. He was saying no before we said things. we went to say our argument. He was already saying nope, nope, nope. So, like, he wasn't actually trying to hear out our position.
And you would think that all these scientists would agree with each other, being as how they all went to the same schools, right? Or the same formula put forth by the Rockefellers, right? Teaching the exact same curriculum, agenda, whatever. It's interesting that there is such a wide variance on, who believes what. And I find it really interesting that the top Nobel laureates all seem to agree that there is an ether. Well, what's up with that? Because the mainstream doesn't teach that at all. They don't even tell them about Airy's failure or the Sagnac experiment or Michelson-Morley. Michelson-Morley, they do, but they completely obfuscate Michelson-Morley by saying it was something that it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a straight up lie, what they say about Michelson-Morley.
And dude, the ether came up, so I brought up, I'm like, well, then what is quantum fluid then? And because I was talking about even quantum, is acknowledging this. He's like, no. I'm like, well, then what is quantum fluid? And he's like, what? Quantum fluid? What is that, like superfluid? I was like, no. All right, never mind.
Dude, he erased that comment.
He erased the comment, exactly,
Yeah,
because he was trying to say he objectively proved me wrong. He Googled it. That's what it was and stuff. I'm like, no, it was in the context of the ether. We're talking about quantum field theory, proposing something like a quantum fluid comprising of the fields, and even things challenging quantum field theory of this, energetic, metaphysical, fluid-like background. And so then I dropped all the links, and he just deleted all the.
Notice now it looks like it doesn't even make sense. Now the whole conversation doesn't make sense.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, well, you exposed him, and he's like, "Oh man, I was wrong. I'm supposed to know everything. What happened? This college dropout just one up me." It's crazy.
Yeah, he's you could tell that was a bit tough on him,
Yeah, just a bit. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. We have so many things going on in flat Earth, and we have got to stop, letting mainstream science dictate, the way we're thinking and trying to define our model by their science. It's never going to work. It's just like when they sit there and say, well, you can't navigate on a AE projection map. Well, that's because latitude and longitude were designed for a sphere. Wow. Is that any wonder? And that was Wolfie's big thing, right? Oh, I challenge any pilot to be able to do that. Well, of course you're not going to be able to do that because you have no sphericalness to work with on the AE map. How we work with absolute directions, right? Absolute bearings. And that works just fine. And by the way, every aeronautical map that's out there does the same thing. You're not sitting there using great circle routes. I'm sorry, but that's just not true. So anyway, we have a long way to go on this.
Oh, hey, sorry. I just want to bounce this off you guys. This is one of these arguments I brought up that I don't think there's any response to. So just because you brought up the Great Circle route, they always bring up east to west. They got the Great Circle on north to south, the Great Meridian, right? So say you're flying from north to south, the Earth is spinning underneath you. Logically speaking, you're going to have to adjust for that because there's the Earth accelerating away from you. And that's where the Glober says, no, Earth's atmosphere moves with the Earth, right? And we're like, oh, well, that's the opposite of what you're saying over here with Coriolis, where you have to have an inertial and accelerative frame of reference to even have the Coriolis effect. Now all of a sudden it's moving perfectly with it, but whatever, right? Because like a 5-hour flight, you'd have to, 550 kilometers an hour, you have to adjust like 3,000 kilometers or something going south. And they obviously don't do that, and they have a constant speed and blah, blah, blah. There's, so you obviously have to accelerate to catch up to what's accelerating away from you. So long story short, I'm like, okay, like to pick apart this idea that the Earth's atmosphere is moving in lockstep with the Earth. I'm like, okay, well, that means that as you increase altitude, the atmosphere would have to go faster and faster, right? There would have to be an increase in speed relative to the increase in altitude.
Yes.
Because obviously, if you're going to travel a greater distance in the same time, you have to go faster, right? So the circle around the Earth of the Earth's atmosphere is getting bigger and bigger, like how much it has to travel. So it has to go faster. So that means from like 1 inch off the Earth all the way up, it has to keep getting faster, right? And so then I'm like, okay, well then what's the mechanism that introduces this energy? Because if not, it violates the law of conservation of energy and momentum. You don't have additional energy introduced. So what's the mechanism that gives the atmosphere the extra energy proportionate to altitude increase to make it go faster and faster? And then that also, to tag on top of that, they claim something called super rotation, that in the thermosphere above that, it's actually going faster than the Earth. And this is obviously the opposite of what goes on in reality. Like if you have a blender, everything spinning in the blender is dragging behind the central mechanism spinning, right? There's a drag behind it. And they're saying the top's going faster. What's up?
Wouldn't they just say it's inertia again?
Well, yeah, they're going to try to say like what, like friction, air friction, but it doesn't work.
No,
it would introduce a whole nother direction, vortex. When you're doing a friction type of momentum. I don't know if that made any sense, but
like, what's the energy? You guys see what I'm saying? Like it's going to have to go faster and faster and faster.
Going faster.
Do what?
You're talking about when you're going higher and going faster?
Yeah, the atmosphere has to spin faster the higher you go because it's having to travel further.
But it'd be very slight, right? I mean,
well, it doesn't
slight,
matter if it's a 50th of a mile per hour. Yeah, like yeah, and actually it's not too slight. Like at 10 miles, I think it's something like
you're right.
A few miles an hour.
I can't think of anything, because if they call it inertia, that you're keeping with the spinning Earth, okay, then you have the inertia of the spin rate at takeoff. But to then increase to go with then you have to say that the atmosphere is somehow carrying the plane, which there's no freaking way.
Right, and it has to be going fast. So you have to have energy introduced, and not only just magical energy. I mean, it has to be magical for sure, because it has to dissipate as it's going down. So it has to be external introduction, like from space or something, and then it has to dissipate proportionate to decrease to where it's perfect enough energy introduced that it makes it all spin with the Earth.
The atmosphere moving with the Earth is the dumbest thing that you can believe.
Yeah, this there is no rebuttal for this. When you're going against the when you're violating the law of conservation of energy and momentum, you got a real problem, And so I haven't had any of the globe zealots, you name the credentials, be able to answer this question. They just say, I don't know, and or it's theoretical math. I said, no, this is physics, buddy. You know what I'm saying? You travel a greater distance, same amount of time, you got to go faster. And then they claim also that the top of the Earth's atmosphere goes faster than the Earth, spins faster than the Earth, up to 30% faster. And they don't know the mechanism for that either. And so, you can't do that.
The only mechanism there would be the friction against the ground, right? But once you go higher and it requires a higher velocity as you go up, then there's another vector force that's introduced, right? That is going to be at 90-degree angles, causing another air vortex to go, up the side, so to speak. You see what I'm saying?
If Coriolis happens like they say it does, because you have things moving at different speeds, then as the Earth is spinning that way, since the atmosphere thins as you go up, then you would be leaving some of it behind, right? Because it's got to carry that amount of atmosphere. So if it thins, I would think it would leave it behind as it keeps going.
Well, all observations show us that as you go further and further out in a system that's spinning, it's going to drag behind it.
Right.
And they need it to go perfectly together all the way up. So they
Right.
need extra energy as it goes up. And if you don't have a mechanism for that, it's just like when we shoot the laser through glass, right? And they claim a physical photon goes into the glass, then exits the glass, and it slows down by 30%, right?
Awesome.
So it's like that violates the law of conservation of energy. It can't speed back up without new energy. So they claim that the laser is just going through all kinds of little detour routes and all this nonsense. And so it's a longer distance travel at the same speed. That doesn't work though, because the laser exits exactly where it enters in water. So that's debunked. But it's the same problem here with the atmosphere. To speed up, you need extra energy. And it just came over. Right? And then the top of their atmosphere, they claim the top of the atmosphere goes faster than the Earth, when the truth is that all reality shows us it would be going significantly slower, like it would be dragged behind it. Right. So yeah, I don't think there's any way around it. I think a great meridian flight just objectively debunks the globe. And then the claim that the atmosphere moves with it doesn't work. And that, because then that means that you can't say autopilot does it or any of this nonsense. Like, the plane would have to be adjusting and accelerating forward to catch up with the accelerating Earth away from it. So like banking to the east or to the left or whatever, and then accelerating forward at the same time to catch up to the Earth. So they claim, oh, the air is magic and carries it with it. And then that just doesn't work. So I don't even see a way around it at all.
Do you have a good way of explaining the 9.8 meters per second squared? Because in my head, and I've talked about this before when we were talking relative density, that for me, and I understand force equals mass and all that stuff, but I still think anything with weight, if we have a down direction, anything with density that starts heading in that direction, is going to increase its speed because of its own density.
It's directly related to its atomic number. I can tell you that.
Well, yeah, you got to ask where,
Yeah,
how does,
it's not about the mass, it's about the charge. That's what it's really about.
Exactly. Like what gives something its compactness of matter, and what is mass? Like when they look at the electron, they just have a mass to charge ratio. They get a charge and they put in a formula. And like mass spectrometry is also charge to mass ratio. It's a conceptual quantification of matter based on charge. Density is all based on charge, because you can't have density without charge. You can't have weight without charge. You just throw M and G in there. That's a concept plus downward acceleration, not answering the question, what is it? And so I don't think everything does accelerate at like a perfect acceleration or anything, but we don't have a way to test that really. Like, you're going to go like 3 miles in the air in a vacuum chamber and drop something. They did a drop tower, I forgot, overseas, and then the elements all dropped at different rates. I'm sure you guys may have seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it doesn't work for them. But it doesn't matter, because electrostatics is so weak, it's not going to change the acceleration much at all anyway. And so it just sets the up and down. It's not even, I don't know if I'm not explaining or if I'm missing something.
Yeah,
but
I guess I'm missing the fact that
density and potential go hand in hand. So you could have a wooden block and a steel block that are the exact same size, and that steel block will be able to hold more potential because it's denser. They don't know why. And electrostatics only covers the outside. So the area on the outside is the exact same. And where the electrostatics are gathering is the exact same amount of area. But for some reason, the metal that's denser will hold more than the wood.
And it makes sense.
Do you
because the
still
charge
hold
is holding it.
Zack, force equals mass times acceleration?
Say again.
I was asking Zack if he holds to that.
Yeah, that's like if you want to get semantical, I think it's all pressure mediation, but is that a force?
Yeah, you have to
they
properly
all
define them first.
Yeah, all these terms have to
But
be
yeah,
redefined.
absolutely. In order for something to move, something has to move it. Things don't just magically move on their own. There has to be
No,
something
but
that
can
drives
things
that.
accelerate on their own simply because if there's a down direction and you have density and you start to head in that direction, I wouldn't expect it to continue at the same speed, because it's
Well,
going
no,
to
because the
build on
potential,
itself.
yeah, the higher you go up, the more potential is in the atmosphere, and that much more potential it has to gain acceleration.
I conceptualize it as like this downward electric pressure, like it's like almost compressing down. That's at least how I look at it. So it's like, you have the positive equipotential increase going up and up and up. You have negative surface charge, and then everything's seeking its equilibrium. So that means everything's trying to get to the ground so it can dissipate its energy. That's why it's called the
And
ground, right?
that's why there is a downward bias, because that starts the juggernaut, right? Is the downward bias, it sets the downward pressure, okay?
Right.
And everything else takes over from there, the electrostatics, the charge potential, everything. But without, and I've said this a million times, without that initial downward bias, none of it works. Just like the 0G plane, when they go into a 0G dive, the density towers will not reorganize themselves, period. They won't do it. They have to have that initial downward force, and then it sets everything into motion, and it works perfectly.
Right. It's
Yeah, and
like what
everything
gives
else
you up and
is
down, right? It's
much
like
stronger.
God did it. Well, God made a mechanism. You know what I'm saying? Like everything that has a mechanism. This place is
Yeah.
like
God
like
made a nice
machinery.
piece of technology, right?
Yeah,
Does
exactly.
that mean it's nature? I don't know.
And as far as I can think, I think it's one of the weakest of all the pressure mediations. Heat will overcome this.
It
Air,
absolutely is,
you
Zach.
know, air pressure, all these different types of modalities that we have where there's pressure mediations. This is the weakest of all of them. This
Yep.
is just telling what direction to go and how all of those should start acting.
Exactly. His argument was so bad. Like, why don't things they can't have a similar accelerative rate because of the difference in the electrical field? It's like you're not understanding then, because electrostatics is super weak. It's like when I tell the Glober, like, look, we can float any type of matter with electrostatics. Okay, so we're showing that we can float, make stuff float. He's like, oh yeah, if that was true and electrostatics was gravity, then why don't we have flying cars yet? Why don't you go get your Nobel Prize and have a flying car? I'm like, you're an idiot, bro. Like, to me to make you float, I would have to kill you and some. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Exactly.
weak, bro.
Well,
Come
not
on.
necessarily. You guys have seen the floating frog, right? They I don't know what it did to that frog physiologically, but they were able to float it. But whatever it was, it couldn't have been good for it. And if you want to float large objects, now you're starting to get into the Hutchison effect, right? Which is the same thing we're talking about, but on a larger scale. But
Yeah.
they don't even want to talk about the Hutchison effect. That's verboten.
Yeah, it's just funny because they're asking me, then why can't you go out there and float a car? You know, and I'm like,
you
But
can.
it's to scale too. That the little piece of hair that I floated to scale was bigger than Mount Everest.
Exactly.
Okay, a car, you know how much electricity that's going to take? This is a very weak force.
But it
It's just
can be
setting the
done.
direction.
But it can be done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't
If we
dispute
have a
that.
big enough voltage source, Hutchison proved it, point blank. No
Yeah.
denying it.
Yeah, I don't dispute that. But you see, like, that's why that refutes his claim that there should be a big change in acceleration, right? Because it's weak. It's super weak. It just creates the up and down. You're like, oh, there's a little
because he
fluctuation
doesn't
in the field.
understand what's causing the acceleration in the first place. That's his problem.
Yeah, of course. But that's why I think it would be great to have the in-depth conversation with him.
Mhm.
You know, if he
I just
cannot
keep thinking
interrupt
about
me.
that cat hair. I keep thinking about that cat hair, and it makes me think that there's another reason why we have body hair, and yet people want to go shave it all off, right? But yeah, there's this additional reason, and it has to do with the electrostatic universe around us, and it has an effect on our bodies. And
It'll let you know when you're somewhere you shouldn't be. Everybody
Yeah.
that's been struck by lightning pretty much says right before it happened, all the hair on their arms started standing
Well,
up. Their hair starts standing up.
It's a lot more than that, Zach. The Navajo code talkers, they found during World War One or two, World War One, I think. They had the Navajo code talkers, right? Which they had this ability to be able to break down all these certain kinds of codes, but they found that when they got their regulation haircuts, they seemed to lose that ability because it was more an intuitive type based ability. And so they were saying that your hair actually acts as an antennae for
like a communication device with like the spirit
ether.
energy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, believe me, there's always a counter story for it. You know, if you look and look hard enough for it, the answers are out there.
And isn't it the longer the hair, the more
Longer the hair,
wavelengths you could pick up?
Yeah, the more intuitive people tend to be. And I think this is one reason why women are so much more intuitive than men, because in general, women wear the longer hairstyles. And, you know, to me, it just makes sense. And the code talkers absolutely believed in it, 100%.
Yeah, and like the people that like like I don't know if you're talking about like the Native Americans, like trackers, they would always swear by you have to have your hair grown out to be able to properly like track things in the
To
wild.
sense things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about this whole ether sensitivity kind of thing, just kind of being in a spiritual presence, your hair kind of is one of the first things that alerts you. It kind of stands up a little bit there. Just when you can feel certain things around you. And there is a certain amount of empathy. Like, I don't know, my wife came and sat next to me the other day and she was just really frustrated, and like just being next to her, it was like feeling like I'm next to a porcupine or something like that. Just like her aura about her was just painful because of just how kind of worked up she was, just, you know, going on with being frustrated with kids and other things going on in life. And I was like, wow, but I could feel it. And I'm also thinking back to, there's an old Jerry Lewis movie called The Disorderly Orderly. And it's about a guy who works at a hospital, and anytime someone starts to tell him about kind of the things that they're feeling, all of a sudden he immediately starts feeling it. Oh, my hip. And all of a sudden they go and describe that, and all of a sudden his hip starts feeling that too. And I actually met a person like that in real life, but you don't have to describe anything to him. He just holds your hand, and then he can immediately tell you what part of your body is feeling pain, because he's feeling it too. And yeah, it's kind of this whole ethereal connection.
Well, what do you think about this guy talking about like lightning? It flips the electric field. Like
They claim sometimes it does. It all depends on what charge the clouds above are coming in at. Sometimes the ground can have a positive charge at the surface, and the lightning will travel from the ground up, and sometimes it can have it the opposite way. And
It
it'll travel
depends
from
on
the top down.
right, exactly what the charge is with respect to the other Gaussian surface or the discharge area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, sometimes the charge potential is greater up at the 100-kilometer mark than it is down on the ground, and we get the sprites and elves and, you know, that type of phenomena, upward going lightning, right? So it just depends, and that even though it's fairly consistent, it's, you know, obviously there's some variation in it. And, you know, this guy that the physicist wants you to believe that, you know, it's there solid 100% all the time, and they totally understand it.
Yeah, I know. That's what's
It's
so
so
funny.
nonsense. They don't have
Dude.
a freaking clue.
Yeah, and he didn't even know. He said that clouds weren't electrostatics, and I asked him, is all matter electrostatic? He said, why would you use the word electrostatic? And it's just like he was way off from my understanding. But like, I think lightning is dielectric discharges to counter space. It's just trying to seek equilibrium. It's dissipating. It's like trying to get back to its pure potential state. It's like a buildup of energy, and then it's trying to discharge and dissipate. And like
That's exactly
that's
right.
what that's all I think.
Yeah,
I don't think it's doing that.
everything is eventually a conductor. Once you run enough electricity through it, everything will conduct, even the air. That's what electricity is.
Even rubber.
Yeah, glass, you name it.
Everything will be a conductor eventually.
That's right. It's called a dielectric breakdown, and it happens all the time. So yeah, and again, this is because all materials possess a charge potential, and it can be, you can either take that charge potential away or add to it and give it an overall net polarity, an overall net charge of either positive or negative. But the fact is that it doesn't matter what material you're dealing with, everything must succumb to that. There's no exceptions.
Well, yeah, we're
Yeah.
swimming in it. It's we can dig a hole as deep as you want, and the electric field is down there. There's no place here we can go that isn't in this electric field that we have.
Right. I mean, how ignorant would it be to try to explain phenomena of things like things going up and down the earth and stuff without acknowledging the electric nature of everything? Like, you automatically can't be fully explaining it, right? Like, you automatically cannot be. So it's just, yeah, I don't know. It seems great. I want to like try to formulate an actual like bulletproof theory with all the math and everything. And he's like, you're going to have to use Maxwell's equations to give me 9.8 meters per second squared. It's like, dude, you don't even need this like mg nonsense to get 9.8 meters per second squared. Like, you can use like height and time and a constant acceleration value. Like it does. Yeah. So I don't know. I want to kind of work on that and maybe we can all work together and like really iron it out and like do different tests and experiments and demonstrate differential and stuff like that, and kind of
Yeah, I'm
formulate like
down.
a solid total theory.
Yeah, it's cool that we're all so close together now. Well, not all
Yeah,
of us,
yeah.
but the tier here. So it's pretty cool because Zach has definitely got a lot of ideas, and I know that's what you want to start covering in depth. And I think that's a fantastic idea because people need to see this stuff for themselves, not what the controlled media tells them and shows them and tells them what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
I agree.
you got to get beyond that. Got to get beyond it. Otherwise, you wind up like those other guys, and
Yeah.
that's sad.
I'm
So
also trying to build like a ferrocell, like a supercell.
Zach's built several of them.
Yeah,
Nice.
I
Yeah,
could
what
do
I
that.
was
I'm
so
working
I
on
guess
a new one that's 3D.
Oh, okay. Kim Wheeler's saying like get optical flats. So like use
Yeah,
like
those are expensive. You
I
don't need
know,
all
dude.
that.
It
You don't
sucks.
need
And it
all that.
sucks.
There's ways to do it so much cheaper, Austin. I
He
found.
said that, but you got to admit the ones he has
Yeah,
are
well,
really dope.
actually,
Like,
this guy, I think it was Action Lab. He found out that if you take it and you just smear it on there and don't actually put it between two lenses, you get you have to keep applying it every so often. It runs away. It wears off. But the visuals are hands down way better. Now,
oh wow.
forgetting some of the stuff Ken Wheeler was doing with the 3D look and things like that, I mean, you'd really have to fine tune it like he did. But yeah, you get some amazing visuals with a lot less money.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
definitely the move is we just start doing like experiments and stuff together, and all of us try to figure out what's really going on and piece all the evidence together.
Heck
And
yeah.
yeah, like here's a math equation so you can stop talking so much. But,
Oh, they need their equations. And the sad part is I mean, from what I've heard that guy say, yeah, he knows the equations, but he doesn't comprehend what the equations are saying.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, that he may be book smart, but when it comes to actually comprehending what that thing is telling you, no, he doesn't get it yet.
Dude, anyone that's conflating little g to like proof of the cause of the alleged gravity is way off.
Yeah,
You know
they're
what I mean?
not paying attention.
Yeah.
They're not. It has nothing to do with it. That's why they created the ionosphere. Because we have this downward vector. The guy who found the ionosphere, supposedly, one of his famous quotes is, I couldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for the ionosphere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep,
And
absolutely true.
This is old science, but we're never taught any of this in school about electricity at all having anything to do with gravity, right?
Yeah, but make no mistake. I mean, the mainstream is not wrong about there must be a downward force. There must be. There is, and there must be. And not only that, I always ask people when they say, well, what's so special about the downforce? And I go, well, for one, not only does everything seem to propagate down towards it, but in addition to that, it accelerates. No other direction does it do that, and not in the way that it does, and no helium balloon will not do that, because you take the helium out of the balloon. Well, if you put a helium balloon in a vacuum chamber, it's going to sit on the bottom, and then if you people are going to say, well, that's because of the weight of the balloon. Great, then take the helium out of the balloon, and the helium is going to sit on the bottom of the vacuum chamber. That is a fact. It is not going to expand to fill the available because it has nothing to be buoyant upon. That's the thing that these people are not getting. You must have the downward vector. You must have it. Nothing works without it. It's what starts the whole damn juggernaut. It's, it makes me crazy. People can't see that. But
yeah, and I mean, we know why, right? It's like this instinctive visceral reaction towards the idea. But yeah, I don't know. I think we find a way to smooth out how we present it, come up with a nice little theory. Everyone can test it a million different ways, and then we just, hey, take it or leave it, man. If you don't want to elevate, stay there. That's what I think. I don't know everything about it. I want to fully figure it out. I want to start looking into all the stuff, and I think it should be cool.
Yep, for sure. All right, guys. Well, I think they're going to call that a show. Thanks for joining us, and wow. Hopefully, if you like this kind of stuff, let us know, because I personally love talking about this stuff. That's a little bit off kilter. I love the series we did on pyramids and just things like this that are not your typical mainstream type of science, so to speak, but nevertheless, there's still something to it. And, as far as I'm concerned, and I think that there's a lot of proofs and a good preponderance of evidence for it. So anyway, I'll go around one more time with everybody and say your final piece, and then we will get out of here. So Kyle, we'll start with you. What you got coming up?
Well, I really love this whole Ether talk. I really want to do a video on that. I've started scripting it, and now I think I know I've got my ending to it now, thankfully. And I would love to take this further and expand more into talking about the stuff in flat Earth biology. Share what I know about it. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'd like to go in that direction. So,
all right, cool. So let's swing around to you, Zach. What do you got coming up, sir?
The usual IRM media stuff, Ironworks on Tuesday and Friday morning, and Have No Sphere Friday evening. And I'd like to start working with Austin on this. Really start nailing down what we want to do, make a list almost. I think that's one thing that's lacking in most of the FE community is like some type of administrator. Maybe Kai could do that first, Austin. We'll tell her what we want to do. She can make a list and make sure if we don't have it done by now, she gives us an ass chewing.
Women are good at that.
She does like lists, bro.
Yeah, to get stuff done, man, you need an administrator, and I see that
coach,
more and more.
a coach,
yeah,
kind of,
exactly. So I'd love to start doing stuff, but I'd like to do it, like almost like scheduled almost. Let's really do it. Yeah.
That's cool.
Awesome.
A coach, personal trainer. This is kind of the thing we're looking for in that academic level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Help drive us forward and encourage us and
keep us on point. Get on us when we're slacking off. Yeah, it helps. It really does. Keep things in perspective.
There you go. All right. And so let's see. Austin, let's swing around to you. What do you got coming up?
I'm trying to figure out all this OBS thing and get it all set up. I never really used it, so I'm like, I'm an OBS boomer, but I'm trying to get it all set up. What's up?
You got to ask for help sometimes.
Yeah, I might have to.
Yeah, Jeran's pretty good at it. Both Jerans are pretty good at it. So you have two Jeran resources.
All right, I'll probably have to take you up on that because I'm just a boomer right now. I'm really triggered, but so I'm gonna get that. I'm trying to get that all figured out so I can get my like schedule for the shows. So we have like certain theme shows at certain times consistently throughout the week. And that, so that'll be cool. That's what's going on at least 5 days a week. Then Glowbusters on Sunday. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Hopefully I can get it done maybe today or within the next few days. And there you go. That's the plan. Start dropping a bunch of content. And we got a bunch of stuff. Obviously Flattoberfest next month. I'm speaking there, and then we're gonna perform a little. So you can go to flatearthfestivals.com. Shout out to Karen B. It's actually pretty cool to hang out with a bunch of people that are like-minded. So I guess we have that coming up, and blah, blah, blah. Trying to get everything in order with a nice little schedule of productivity before that baby gets here,
Yeah, amen to that. Because after that, your life is going to change like you have never imagined.
That's what I hear.
Get your sleep now.
Yeah, it is so true. But if they grow up, they're worth it. Kids are amazing, and I only wish that I would have paid more attention to my kids as they were looking at the world and seeing it through their eyes. But as adults, we're always worrying about what we're worrying about. But kids are so refreshing, because they just have such a clean way of looking at things. I love it. So that's the way that goes. All right, and last but not least, let's go over to you, Jeran. What do you got coming up, sir?
I've got I'm going to the circus at 4:00. Oh, sorry, it's Mavi's birthday week, so we're gonna go to the circus here in a little bit, and then I got to be back by 6:30. I'm gonna do a Crumb show tonight. We're gonna finish off our song, And then I have my tooth pulled tomorrow, so I'm taking this week off and Mavi's birthday. So there will be no Thursday or Friday show this week. And I won't be on Glowbusters next weekend, so there's no reason to watch the show.
Nah, never any reason without Jeran here.
And then be back for the following week. Do it.
One request, Jeran.
Yes.
You got to show that Maverick moment before it gets too late on the East Coast.
I usually do that, don't I?
Usually, but I mean, I go to bed at like 9 o'clock, so you're starting when I'm going to bed.
Yeah, it's my favorite part.
But yeah,
wait, is
I
that a
love
play on
Maverick
like the
moment.
that Maverick moment?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite parts of the show, and I think I missed the last couple. But I'll.
He's funny.
I'll
He
go
has
back
his
and
own
watch.
YouTube channel, and as soon as I have time, I'm going to put all those on his channel. But I just
I can't wait. Yeah, I love those, dude. Don't stop.
no plan on it. Yes, he's
awesome.
He's a funny kid. There's so many things we miss. We're like, oh my god, that was a Maverick moment. But, you can't have your camera on him full time.
Yeah. Sometimes it's best just to have cameras in your house on 24/7 so you don't miss anything, right?
But it is funny that Mrs. and I spend like we like he loves the moon. Maverick loves looking at the moon, so we keep asking what it is because we figure he probably has a better chance unvaccinated, completely connected. So he hasn't told us yet though. So
Yeah, he'll spit something out one day, and you and Miss are just gonna go, "Holy crap!"
I'm gonna go live. And go, I know what the moon is. It's a soul trap, Dad. Soul trap. All right.
Yep. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we're going to call that a show. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week. And yeah, we're glad you came with us. Oh, and by the way, the Super Jets, I think we only got one deal in the Rockfin, maybe more. Yeah, Robert Zafaris, thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Robert.
And appreciate it. And yeah, we will see you on the next show. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
Good show.